The life insurance will clear by Wednesday so we can have the funeral on Friday. My husband Marcus whispered to his mistress right outside my hospital room. Make it cheap. She's not worth much anyway. I heard every single word through the cracked door, and what I did next destroyed them both. My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and I'm 52 years old. 3 weeks ago, I was admitted to St. Catherine's Hospital with what the doctors called acute complications from a pre-existing condition. That's medical speak for, we're not entirely sure what's wrong, but you're dying. At least that's what everyone thought, including me, including the husband I'd loved for 28 years, and the woman he'd been sleeping with for God knows how long. The morphine drip kept me floating in and out of consciousness, but that particular evening I was alert, crystal clear, sharp as broken glass, and just as dangerous, though nobody knew it yet. The doctors had given me 2 weeks, maybe 3. My organs were shutting down one by one like lights going out in an empty house. Marcus had been the devoted husband for the first few days, holding my hand, stroking my hair, whispering about all our beautiful memories together. I'd actually felt guilty for being sick for leaving him alone. Then I saw her. Rebecca Chen, 28 years old, my husband's executive assistant. I'd met her at the company Christmas party 2 years ago. She'd seemed sweet, then eager professional. She'd even complimented my dress, told me how lucky Marcus was to have such an elegant wife. I'd liked her. God, I'd actually liked her. She started visiting the hospital 4 days into my stay. At first, she came during normal hours, bringing Marcus coffee, taking care of little things at the office so he could focus on me. How thoughtful, how considerate, what a dedicated employee. The nurses all commented on how sweet she was, how devoted Marcus must be to have such a caring team. Then I noticed the looks, the way her hand lingered on his arm just a second too long, the way she'd smooth his collar even though it wasn't wrinkled, the way Marcus's voice changed when he spoke to her softer, younger somehow, and the way they'd both go quiet when they thought I was sleeping. I'm not stupid. I've never been stupid. I built a career in corporate law before I retired 5 years ago. I can read people like most people read grocery lists. But even smart women can be blind when they love someone. Even smart women can explain away the obvious because the truth is too painful to acknowledge. But dying has a way of clarifying things. When you know your time is limited, you stop making excuses. You stop pretending. You see everything with this horrible, perfect clarity. And what I saw was that my husband of 28 years was in love with someone else. Someone young enough to be his daughter. Someone who was probably waiting for me to die. The realization should have broken me. And maybe it would have if I wasn't already broken. If my body wasn't already giving up. Instead, it made me angry. Furiously, coldly, calculatingly angry. I started pretending to be asleep more often, started keeping my eyes closed when they thought I was unconscious. The morphine made it easy. They'd check my breathing, see the steady rise and fall of my chest, assume I was out, and then they'd talk. God, how they talked. Just a few more weeks, Marcus had whispered to her one night, stroking her hair, while I lay 10 feet away, tubes running out of my arms. Then we can finally be together, really together. I hate this. Rebecca had whimpered. I hate sneaking around. I hate pretending. I know, baby, I know, but we have to be careful. If anyone suspects, especially now, it could complicate things with the estate. The estate. My estate. The money my father had left me. The investments I'd made. The life insurance policy worth $3 million that Marcus had convinced me to increase just 6 months ago. For security, he'd said. So I'm taken care of if anything happens to you. I'd signed the papers because I loved him, because I trusted him. What a fool I'd been. I started paying attention to everything after that. Every whispered conversation. Every touch. Every moment they thought I couldn't see or hear. And I learned so much more than I ever wanted to know. They'd been together for 2 years. It started at a conference in Miami. One night that turned into a weekend that turned into a regular thing. Marcus had been careful, very careful. Different hotels, cash payments, a separate phone. Rebecca had been smart too, keeping everything professional at the office, never emailing or texting anything inappropriate on company devices. But they'd gotten sloppy, comfortable, Because I was dying, and dead women don't need the truth. The life insurance will clear by Wednesday, Marcus said that night, and I felt something inside me calcify into diamond-hard resolve. So we can have the funeral on Friday. Make it cheap. She's not worth much anyway. Are you sure about the will? Rebecca asked. Her voice was eager, hungry. You said she never updated it after you got married. Positive. Everything goes to the spouse. Standard boilerplate. She was always too busy with work to think about that stuff. Trusted me to handle the financial planning. He laughed. Actually laughed. By this time next month, we'll have the house sold, the insurance money in the bank, and we can start over. Maybe that villa in Tuscany you keep talking about. What about her family? Won't they ask questions? What family? Her parents are dead. She's got a sister in Seattle she hasn't spoken to in 5 years. Some cousins she sends Christmas cards to. Nobody who matters. Nobody who'll contest anything. They were wrong about that. So very wrong. But they didn't know about the phone call I'd made 3 days earlier during one of my brief moments of clarity. They didn't know about the lawyer who'd visited disguised as a hospital chaplain. They didn't know that I'd changed everything. But they would. I should go, Rebecca said. Visiting hours are almost over and we don't want the nurses getting suspicious. Wait. Marcus's voice dropped even lower. Kiss me first. Really kiss me. I need it after sitting in that room all day pretending to care. The sound of them kissing right outside my door while I lay dying was almost enough to make me press the call button. Almost enough to make me sit up and scream. But I didn't. I stayed perfectly still, breathing slowly, evenly, playing my role, because I had a plan now, and it required patience. Rebecca left her heels clicking down the hallway. Marcus waited a few minutes, then came back into my room. He sat in the chair beside my bed, took my hand, and pressed it to his lips. Hey, sweetheart, he murmured. Sorry I stepped out. Had to take a work call. Everything's falling apart at the office without you to keep me organized. He stroked my hair. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, Elle. I really don't. The performance was impressive. Oscar-worthy. If I hadn't heard what I'd just heard, I might have believed him. Might have died thinking I was loved. Mr. Whitmore. A nurse poked her head in. Young blonde new. I didn't recognize her. I'm sorry, but visiting hours ended 10 minutes ago. You'll have to come back tomorrow. Of course, of course. Marcus stood, squeezed my hand one more time. I'll be back first thing in the morning, Elle. I love you. I've always loved you. He left. The nurse bustled around, checking my vitals, adjusting my IV, but she wasn't a new nurse at all. She was Detective Sarah Morrison, and she was wearing a wire. Did you get it? I whispered once Marcus's footsteps had faded completely. Every word, she confirmed, her voice low and professional. The DA is going to love this. Conspiracy to commit fraud at minimum. Possibly attempted murder depending on what else we find. The medication. Being analyzed now. If he's been tampering with your prescriptions like you suspect, we'll know by morning. She adjusted my pillow, still playing the role in case anyone was watching. Are you sure you want to go through with this? It's not too late to back out. I'm dying anyway, I said. At least this way I get to watch the bastard burn. That wasn't entirely true. I wasn't dying. Well, I was sick, very sick, but not terminal. Not anymore. 3 days ago, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Rebecca's aunt, and my longtime physician had figured out what was actually wrong with me. Chronic arsenic poisoning. Small doses administered over months, designed to look like natural organ failure. Someone had been killing me slowly, and we all knew who. The real question was whether we could prove it, and whether I could survive long enough to see justice served. Your sister arrives tomorrow, Detective Morrison said. We've briefed her on everything. She'll be here to witness the will reading. Marcus thinks I haven't talked to Janet in 5 years. Let him keep thinking that. She checked the hallway, then met my eyes. Mrs. Whitmore, Eleanor, what your husband is planning, what he's already done, it's evil, pure evil. But you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly, really ugly. Are you strong enough? I thought about Marcus kissing Rebecca outside my door. I thought about him laughing while planning a cheap funeral. I thought about 2 years of lies, of poison, of being murdered in slow motion by the man who'd promised to love me until death do us part. I'm strong enough, I said. I'm more than strong enough. The next morning I woke to the sound of Marcus's voice in the hallway. He was on the phone, and he wasn't being careful about volume. No, she's definitely going. The doctor said maybe a week now. Everything's on track. A pause. Yeah, I know. I can't wait either, baby. Just a little longer. He ended the call and walked into my room, all smiles and tender concern. Good morning, sweetheart. How are you feeling today? I let my eyes flutter open slowly, weakly. Tired, I whispered. So tired, Marcus. I know. He sat down, took my hand. His palm was warm, dry, familiar. I'd held this hand for 28 years. Trusted this hand. Let this hand hold my whole life. But you're strong. You're the strongest person I know. You're going to beat this. The lies came so easily to him. It was almost impressive. Marcus, I said, making my voice as weak as possible, I need to tell you something. About the will. His entire body tensed. Just for a second, so quick, most people would have missed it. But I saw it. The flash of eagerness in his eyes, the way his fingers tightened on mine. Don't talk about that now, he said. You're going to be fine. No, I'm not. We both know I'm not. I coughed, playing it up. I need to know that you'll be okay, that everything is taken care of. Everything is taken care of, Elle. You did all that years ago, remember? You made me the beneficiary on everything. I'm all set up. He stroked my hair. You don't need to worry about me. But I do worry. I worry about you being alone, about you finding someone new eventually. I watched his face carefully. You will, won't you? Find someone new. I don't want you to be alone forever. I could never replace you. But eventually, in time, you're only 55, Marcus. You have so much life left. I squeezed his hand weakly. Promise me you'll try to be happy. Promise me you'll find love again. I promise, he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. I was giving him permission, absolving him of guilt before I even died. What a considerate wife I was, thinking of his future happiness even on my deathbed. There's someone at the office, isn't there? I asked, going for the kill. That pretty assistant of yours, Rebecca. He went absolutely still. What, no? No, Elle, there's nobody. It's okay if there is. I've seen the way she looks at you, the way you smile when she's around. I made my voice warm, understanding. I just want you to be happy, Marcus, even if it's with someone else. I want you to promise me that you won't wait too long to move on. A year, maybe. Not 5 or 10, just a year. Can you promise me that? I promise, he said again, and this time his voice broke. But not with grief, with relief, with joy. His dying wife was giving him permission to be with his mistress, and he thought he'd won the lottery. Good, I whispered. That makes me happy. That makes everything easier. He kissed my forehead, and I didn't pull away even though my skin crawled. You're amazing, Elle. Even now you're thinking of me. I don't deserve you. That, at least, was true. He left an hour later for a meeting at the office. I knew exactly what kind of meeting it was, who it was with, and I knew he'd tell Rebecca everything about how his saintly dying wife had given them her blessing, about how they didn't even have to wait very long. As soon as he was gone, Detective Morrison came in, this time in plain clothes. The lab results came back, she said without preamble. Arsenic in your system, exactly as Dr. Chen suspected. Enough to kill you within another month or two. And we found the source. Where? Your vitamin supplements, the ones your husband prepared for you every morning. I'd taken those vitamins religiously for 8 months. Every single morning with breakfast. Marcus had been so insistent about it, so caring. You need to keep your strength up, he'd said, especially with your work stress. He'd been poisoning me for 8 months, killing me slowly while smiling and holding my hand and telling me he loved me. There's more, Morrison continued. We pulled his phone records. He's been researching life insurance policies, estate law, how long it takes for death certificates to be processed. He's been planning this for almost a year. What about Rebecca? She's involved. We found text messages from a burner phone we traced back to her. They've been explicit about the plan, about waiting for you to die, about the money. Morrison's face was grim. They're not just having an affair, Mrs. Whitmore. They're partners in this. She knew what he was doing. She encouraged it. I closed my eyes, let the reality wash over me. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It was premeditated murder. Both of them. Together. Planning my death like it was a business transaction. "We have enough to arrest them both," Morrison said. "Today if you want. But if you want to go through with your plan, we need to wait. We need them to incriminate themselves further. The DA wants a slam dunk, not just a strong case." "How much longer?" "A few more days, maybe a week. Can you hold on?" I opened my eyes, looked at her directly. "I've been taking poison for 8 months and I'm still here. I can hold on." "Your sister arrives this afternoon. The lawyer will come tomorrow dressed as a hospital administrator. Everything's in place." She hesitated. "Are you absolutely certain about the will change? About everything you're risking?" I thought about the villa in Tuscany. Marcus and Rebecca had been planning. I thought about the cheap funeral. I thought about Rebecca's hungry voice asking about my will. I thought about Marcus laughing. "I'm certain," I said. "Let's destroy them." That afternoon, my sister Janet arrived. I hadn't seen her in 6 months, though Marcus thought it had been 5 years. We'd let him think we were estranged because it suited us. Janet had never liked Marcus, had seen through him from the beginning. I'd defended him for years, chosen him over her in a dozen small ways. When she walked into my hospital room, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Ellie," she whispered, rushing to my bedside. "I'm okay," I said quietly, glancing at the door. "Is he gone?" "He left 5 minutes ago, said he had an emergency at work." She squeezed my hand. "I'm going to kill him myself. I'm going to actually murder him." "Get in line," I smiled weakly. "Did Morrison brief you?" "On everything." Janet's face hardened. She was 3 years younger than me, a prosecutor in Seattle, and she had no patience for criminals, especially not ones who tried to murder her sister. "This is going to work, Ellie. We're going to nail him to the wall." "What about the kids?" I asked. Marcus and I had 2 children, David and Sophie, both in their 20s. "Already contacted them. They're flying in tonight. Morrison told them everything." Janet's expression softened. "They're devastated. David wants to come here and beat Marcus senseless. Sophie won't stop crying." Our children. God, I hadn't even thought about what this would do to them. Finding out their father was a monster, that he'd tried to kill their mother for money. "They can't know I'm in on this," I said urgently. "They have to think I'm really dying. They have to react naturally when everything happens, or Marcus will get suspicious." "Ellie, they're your kids. They deserve to know." "After," I insisted. "After we have him. After it's over. I can't risk them giving anything away." Janet looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. "Okay, but you're telling them yourself when this is done. I'm not being the bad guy." The lawyer came the next day, introduced as Peter Andrews from hospital administration, there to discuss some paperwork. Marcus was conveniently at another emergency meeting. David and Sophie were in the cafeteria, giving me time to rest. "Mrs. Whitmore," the lawyer said formally, pulling out a folder, "I have the revised documents you requested. Everything is in order. All you need to do is sign." I reviewed the pages carefully. My entire estate, every asset, every investment, every penny was being placed in an irrevocable trust. Janet was the trustee. My children were the beneficiaries. Marcus got nothing. Not the house, not the life insurance, not my father's money. Nothing but whatever he'd earned himself. "The life insurance," I asked. "Beneficiary change to your children with your sister as custodian until they're 30. It's done. He can't touch it. And if I die before this is over, it's already legally binding. Even if you died tonight, he'd get nothing." And the lawyer met my eyes. "Are you absolutely sure about this? He's still your husband. In some states, he might be able to contest." "He won't have time to contest," I said grimly. "He'll be in prison." I signed everything. My signature was shaky, weak-looking, but legal. The lawyer witnessed, notarized, and filed the documents electronically, right there from his tablet. By the time he left, Marcus Whitmore had been completely removed from my will, and he had no idea. Marcus came back that evening with flowers, Roses my favorite, or what he thought was my favorite. My actual favorite was peonies, but he'd never paid enough attention to know that. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" he asked, arranging the roses in a vase. "Weaker," I lied. "The doctor said my liver is starting to fail." That was true. The arsenic had done real damage, but Dr. Chen believed with proper treatment and time I'd recover. The human body was remarkably resilient when you stopped poisoning it. "Oh, Elle." Marcus sat beside me, took my hand. "Is there anything I can do? Anything at all?" "Just stay with me," I whispered. "I don't want to be alone. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Such beautiful lies, such perfect, practiced lies. David and Sophie came in shortly after, and my heart broke all over again. Sophie's eyes were red and swollen. David looked like he hadn't slept in days. They didn't know the truth. They thought their mother was dying, and their father was the devoted husband staying by her side. "Mom," Sophie choked out, collapsing beside my bed. "Hey, baby girl." I stroked her hair with my free hand. "It's okay. I'm okay." "You're not okay." David's voice was hard angry, the way it got when he was trying not to cry. "None of this is okay." "Your mother's a fighter," Marcus said, standing up to give them access to me. "She's not giving up." I watched my husband comfort our children, saw him play the role of supportive father, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them everything right then, but I couldn't. Not yet. "Dad," David said, turning to Marcus, "have you eaten? You need to take care of yourself too." "I'm fine, son." "No, really. Go grab something from the cafeteria. Sophie and I will stay with Mom for a while." Marcus hesitated, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. He wanted to leave, probably to call Rebecca, but he had to play the devoted husband. "Go," I said softly. "I'll be fine for an hour. The kids want time with me." "Okay," he agreed finally. "I'll be back soon." As soon as he was gone, David pulled out his phone and showed me something. A photo. Marcus and Rebecca walking into a hotel together. Yesterday. "I followed him," David said quietly, his voice shaking with rage. "I know, Mom. I know what he's doing." Sophie gasped. "David, what? He's cheating on Mom." David cut her off. "While she's dying, he's fucking around with some woman from his office." "David, language?" I started, but he shook his head. "No, Mom. No, you don't defend him. Not this time." He showed Sophie the photo, and she turned pale. "I wanted to tell you, but I thought maybe it would be too much stress right now." "When did you find out?" I asked carefully. 3 days ago. I came to surprise you and I saw him in the parking garage with her, so I followed him." David's hands were shaking. "I have more photos, videos. I've been documenting everything." Perfect. My son, the amateur detective, had been gathering evidence without even knowing he was helping build a criminal case. "Don't tell your father you know," I said urgently. "Either of you. Promise me." "Mom, he's betraying you." "Promise me, David." I made my voice as firm as I could. "I need you to trust me on this. Can you do that?" He looked at Sophie, who nodded slowly through her tears. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, Mom. But why?" "Because I have a plan," I said. "And I need you both to play along." I watched David's face cycle through confusion, anger, and finally determination. Sophie wiped her tears and sat up straighter, and I could see my own stubbornness reflected in her eyes. These were my children, and they deserved to know they were helping take down a monster, even if they didn't know the full extent of his crimes yet. "What kind of plan?" Sophie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before I could answer, Marcus walked back in carrying a sandwich he clearly had no intention of eating. His eyes darted between the three of us, suspicious. "Everything okay in here?" he asked too casually. "Fine, Dad," David said smoothly, slipping his phone into his pocket. "We were just talking about old times. Remember that vacation to Cape Cod when I was 12? Marcus relaxed visibly. "Of course, you caught that huge striped bass." "Mom still has the photo on her desk at home," Sophie added, playing along perfectly. Marcus corrected his voice, taking on a somber tone. "I packed up her office last week. Thought it might be too painful for her to think about." Liar. He'd been going through my files looking for financial documents. I'd hidden everything important at Janet's house months ago, back when I'd first started feeling sick and paranoid. Some instinct had told me to be careful to protect myself. I hadn't known why then. I did now. "That was thoughtful of you, Dad," David said, and I could hear the barely controlled rage underneath his polite tone. Marcus stayed for another hour, performing his role as devoted husband and father before claiming he needed to go home and get some sleep. The moment he left, David pulled up a tracker app on his phone. "I put a GPS tracker on his car 2 days ago," he said. "He's not going home. Want to bet he's heading to that woman's apartment." "David," I said carefully, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. What you're doing, the photos, the tracking, it's all helpful, but I need you to be smart about it. If your father suspects anything, if he knows anyone is watching him, this all falls apart." "What falls apart?" Sophie demanded. "Mom, what's going on? And don't tell me nothing. I'm 24 years old, not a child." I looked at my daughter, then at my son, and made a decision. They needed to know enough to help, but not so much that they'd do something rash. "Your father isn't just cheating on me," I said slowly. "He's planning to take everything. The life insurance, the house, all of it, and I'm making sure that doesn't happen." "How?" David's eyes were sharp, calculating. He'd gotten my mind for strategy. "I changed my will. Everything goes to you two with your Aunt Janet as trustee. Your father gets nothing." Sophie gasped. David's expression went cold and hard. "Good," he said simply. "But he can't know. Not yet. I need him to think everything is exactly as he planned it. Can you both do that? Can you pretend nothing has changed?" They both nodded, and I saw the moment they transformed from my grieving children into co-conspirators. It should have made me sad, dragging them into this ugliness. Instead, I felt pride. They were strong. They were smart. They were going to help me burn their father's world to the ground. Marcus came back the next morning at 9 sharp, freshly showered, and wearing cologne. Rebecca's perfume still clung faintly to his jacket. He kissed my forehead and asked how I'd slept, and I told him fine, just fine, while imagining all the ways I was going to destroy him. "The doctors want to run some more tests today," he said, settling into the chair beside my bed. "They're talking about maybe moving you to hospice care." Hospice. My heart actually skipped. "Marcus, I'm not ready for that." "I know, sweetheart, I know, but we have to be realistic." He took my hand, rubbed his thumb over my knuckles. "They're saying your organs are shutting down faster than they expected. They want you to be comfortable." Comfortable. That was code for, "we're giving up." And if I went to hospice, I'd be even more isolated, even more vulnerable. They could increase the poison without anyone noticing. They could kill me quickly and call it natural progression. "I want to stay here," I said firmly. "In the hospital, where the doctors can monitor me. El hospice care is better equipped for pain management." I said no. I made my voice weak but stubborn. "Please, Marcus. I'm not ready to give up yet. I'm not ready to go home to die." He hesitated, and I could see the frustration flash across his face before he smoothed it away. "Of course. Whatever you want. I'll talk to the doctors." He left to talk to the doctors, and I immediately pressed the call button. A different nurse appeared, one I recognized from Detective Morrison's team. "He's pushing for hospice," I said quietly. "We heard. Dr. Chen is blocking it. Says you're not stable enough for transport." The nurse adjusted my IV with practiced efficiency. "But Mrs. Whitmore, he's going to keep pushing. We need to move faster." "How much longer?" "Morrison says 2 more days. 3 at most. We need enough evidence for conspiracy, not just the affair and the poisoning. We need them to explicitly discuss the murder plan on tape. Then we give them a reason to discuss it." I closed my eyes thinking. "Tell Dr. Chen to tell Marcus that I'm deteriorating faster, that I might only have a few days. That will make them careless." The nurse nodded and disappeared. 10 minutes later, Dr. Chen came in with Marcus trailing behind her. Her face was professionally grave. "Mr. Whitmore." Mrs. Whitmore, I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Eleanor's latest blood work shows significant deterioration. Her liver and kidneys are both showing signs of imminent failure. What does that mean? Marcus asked, and I could hear the hope trying to hide behind concern. It means we're looking at days, not weeks. I'm so sorry. We'll do everything we can to keep her comfortable, but at this stage, the decline is likely to be rapid. How rapid? I asked, letting my voice shake. 72 hours, possibly less. I recommend having family members come say goodbye soon. Dr. Chen met my eyes, and I saw the apology there, the shared understanding that we were lying to everyone, manipulating Marcus into a confession. I'm truly sorry. She left, and Marcus sat down heavily in the chair. For a long moment, he just stared at the floor. Then he looked up at me, and I saw something that might have been genuine emotion cross his face. Guilt, maybe, or just fear of getting caught. I should call Rebecca, he said, then caught himself. I mean to let the office know. They'll need to make arrangements. That's fine, I whispered. Can you do it outside? I need a moment alone. He practically ran from the room phone already in his hand. I counted to 60, then carefully swung my legs out of bed. The monitoring equipment was all fake at this point, just props to maintain the illusion. I was weak from the arsenic, yes, but not dying. Not anymore. I walked slowly to the door, cracked it open an inch. Marcus was at the end of the hallway, his voice low and urgent. 72 hours, maybe less. Chen just told us. A pause. No, this is good. This is perfect. We don't have to wait. It's happening naturally now. I pulled out the phone Detective Morrison had given me, the one hidden in my hospital gown pocket, and started recording. I know, baby, I know, Marcus continued. I'm being careful. The kids don't suspect anything. David's too busy being angry about work, and Sophie's too emotional to think straight. Another pause longer this time. The funeral home. Yeah, I already talked to them. Cheapest package they have. Cremation, no service, just a small memorial. I told them she wanted it simple. My hands shook, but I kept the phone steady, kept recording. I love you too, Marcus said, his voice dropping to something tender. Just a few more days, and then it's you and me. Forever. I promise. He listened to whatever Rebecca was saying, then laughed quietly. The Tuscany villa already put a deposit down. I told you, I'm all in on this, on us. He hung up and stood there for a moment, his back to me, shoulders relaxed. Happy. He was happy that his wife was dying. I slipped back into bed just before he turned around. When he walked back in, I was lying exactly as he'd left me, eyes closed, breathing shallow. Elle, he said softly. You awake? I murmured, playing half-conscious. I talked to the office. They're going to handle everything so I can focus on you. He sat down, took my hand again. His palm was warm and dry and made my skin crawl. Sophie and David are on their way. They want to spend time with you. Good, I whispered. I want them here. And Janet, I want my sister. Janet? He couldn't quite hide his displeasure. Sweetheart, you haven't talked to Janet in years. Do you really want to dredge up old family drama right now? She's my sister. I'm dying. I want my sister here. Of course, he said, backing down immediately. I'll call her. I already did, I lied. This morning early, before you got here. She's flying in tonight. I watched the calculation happen behind his eyes. Janet was a prosecutor. Janet was smart. Janet had never liked him. Having Janet here was dangerous, but refusing to have her here, especially now, would look suspicious. That's great, he said finally. That's really great, Elle. I'm glad you two are reconnecting. Liar. But then again, so was I. We were all lying now, just some of us, for better reasons. David and Sophie arrived an hour later. They'd clearly been crying, but they held it together when they saw Marcus. I was so proud of them, I could have burst. Mom, Sophie said, sitting carefully on the edge of my bed. Dr. Chen told us. About the timeline. I know, baby. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, David said roughly. You don't apologize for being sick. Marcus put his hand on David's shoulder. Your mother's been so brave through all this. We all need to be brave for her now." David's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Yeah, Dad, brave." We spent the afternoon together, the four of us, telling old stories and pretending this was a normal family moment, pretending Marcus wasn't a monster, pretending I wasn't wearing a wire, pretending we weren't all waiting for the hammer to fall. Around 5, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood quickly. "I need to take this," he said. "Work emergency. I'll be right back." He stepped into the hallway, and David immediately pulled out his phone. "He's texting someone, not saved in his contacts, but I recognize the number. It's her." "What's he saying?" Sophie asked. David's face went hard. "He's telling her the kids are here, that he has to play the devoted father for a few more hours, and then he'll come over." He looked up at me. "Mom, let me confront him. Let me tell him I know." "No," I said sharply. "Not yet. David, you have to trust me. This is bigger than just an affair." "How much bigger?" Before I could answer, Marcus came back in, smiling apologetically. "Sorry about that. Crisis at the office." "You should go handle it," I said. "The kids are here. They'll stay with me. You should take care of whatever you need to take care of." "Are you sure?" But he was already reaching for his jacket. "I'm sure. Go. I'll be fine." He kissed my forehead, squeezed David's shoulder, hugged Sophie. "I'll be back later tonight. Call me if anything changes." The moment he was gone, David pulled up the tracker. "He's heading east, toward the Riverside apartments. That's where she lives." "How do you know where she lives?" I looked her up. Rebecca Chen, 28, works at Whitmore Consulting as executive assistant. Lives alone in a 2-bedroom apartment that costs $3,000 a month, which is interesting because her salary is only $60,000 a year. I felt sick. He's paying for her apartment. "With your money," Sophie said quietly. "He's using your money to pay for his mistress's apartment." David stood up abruptly. "I'm going over there. I'm going to get pictures of him going inside." "David, no." "Mom, yes, we need evidence. The more we have, the better." "Right. Isn't that what you said?" He looked at me intently. "What aren't you telling us?" Sophie's eyes widened. "Oh my God. Mom, is he hurting you? Is he doing something to you?" I looked at my 2 children, saw the fear and fury in their faces, and knew I couldn't keep lying to them. Not about this. "He's been poisoning me," I said quietly. "For 8 months. Arsenic in my vitamins. The police know. They're building a case. That's why I need you both to act normal, to not confront him, because we need him to confess on tape." The silence that followed was deafening. David's face went absolutely white. Sophie made a sound like a wounded animal. "He's trying to kill you," David said, finally, his voice hollow. "Our father is trying to murder you." "And we're going to make sure he goes to prison for it," I said. "But only if we're smart. Only if we follow the plan." "What plan?" Sophie whispered. "Mom, what plan?" So I told them everything. About Detective Morrison, about the fake nurses, about the changed will, about the recordings, about how we needed them to keep playing their parts for just a few more days until we had enough evidence for a conviction that would stick. When I finished, David sat down slowly. "I want to kill him," he said conversationally. "I actually want to murder my own father." "Get in line," Sophie said, wiping her eyes. "But prison is better. Prison means he suffers longer. My daughter, the psychology major, already thinking about the long game. My son, the engineer, already calculating the angles. They were going to be okay. We were all going to be okay." "So what do we do now?" David asked. "Now we wait for Janet. She's arriving at 8. And tomorrow, we spring the trap." Janet arrived right on schedule, sweeping into my hospital room like an avenging angel in a power suit. She hugged me carefully, then pulled David and Sophie into a fierce embrace. "Aunt Janet," Sophie sobbed into her shoulder. "Did Mom tell you? She told me. And we're going to handle it." Janet's voice was pure steel. "Where is he?" "With his mistress," David said. "Mom, we should go check. Make sure he's there. Make sure he's not doing something else." I wanted to say no, wanted to keep them safe and away from this mess. But David was right. We needed to know where Marcus was, what he was doing. "Fine, but you take Detective Morrison with you, and you do not under any circumstances let him see you. Understand?" David nodded and left to find Morrison. Janet sat down beside my bed. "How are you really feeling?" she asked quietly. "Weak, tired, angry." I met her eyes. "But I'm going to make it, Jan. I'm going to survive this, and I'm going to watch him burn." "Damn right you are." She squeezed my hand. "I talked to the DA. They want to move tomorrow. They think they have enough." "Not yet," I said. "We need the smoking gun. We need him to explicitly say he poisoned me, that he planned to kill me. Otherwise, a good defense lawyer could create reasonable doubt. Eleanor, you're playing with fire. Every day you stay in contact with him is another day he could what, poison me again? I'm not taking anything from him anymore. The supplements are gone. I'm drinking bottled water. The only food I eat is what the hospital provides directly." I smiled grimly. "I'm safer here than I would be anywhere else." David came back 40 minutes later with Detective Morrison. They both looked grim. "Well?" I asked. "He's at her apartment," Morrison said. "We have eyes on the building. He went in with flowers and a bottle of champagne." "Champagne?" Sophie repeated bitterly. "He's celebrating." "That's not all," David said, pulling up his phone. "I got this from outside the building. Her apartment has a balcony. I used a telephoto lens." He showed us the photo. Marcus and Rebecca on her balcony glasses raised in a toast. They were kissing his hand tangled in her hair, and in the background, clearly visible on her coffee table, was a laptop open to a life insurance website. "They're checking the policy," Morrison said, "making sure everything is in order. This is good, Mrs. Whitmore. This shows premeditation." "Can you hear what they're saying?" Janet asked. "Working on it. We have a parabolic microphone set up, but the traffic noise is interfering." Morrison's phone buzzed. She checked it, then smiled coldly. "But we did get this." She held up her phone, played an audio clip. Rebecca's voice tinny, but clear through the bad connection. "Just a few more days, baby. Then we're free. Then we're rich." Marcus's laugh. "Rich and free. Everything we've wanted. Everything we deserve. Do you think she suffered? Do you think she knew?" A pause. Then Marcus's voice thoughtful. "I don't think so. The arsenic mimics natural illness. Chen said she might have just thought she was getting old slowing down. She never suspected a thing." "Good," Rebecca said. "I'd hate for her last days to be full of suspicion. That would be cruel." The recording ended. We all sat in silence. "That's it," Morrison said finally. "That's the confession. He just admitted to poisoning you with intent to kill. I'm calling the DA right now." "Wait," I said. "I want to see his face. When he finds out I'm alive, that I know everything. I want to watch him realize he lost." "Eleanor," Janet said warningly. "I've earned this," I said fiercely. "He tried to kill me. He stole 8 months of my life, maybe more. I want to look him in the eye when everything comes crashing down." Morrison considered this. "The DA won't like it, but I'll ask. Maybe we can set up a confrontation tomorrow when we arrest him. But I make no promises." She left to make her calls. David sat down beside me, taking my hand. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said quietly. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. Baby, this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. He's my father. I should have known what he was capable of. He fooled everyone," Sophie said, her voice thick with tears. "Even Mom. For years he fooled all of us." Janet's phone rang. She answered, listened, then her face lit up with savage satisfaction. "That was the DA," she said. "They're moving tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. raid on both Marcus and Rebecca. They'll arrest them simultaneously." "What about Mom's confrontation?" David asked. "The DA says if Eleanor is strong enough, they'll bring Marcus here before booking him. Give her 5 minutes." Janet looked at me. "But Elle, you need to be prepared. This could get ugly. He might say things, do things. Are you sure you're strong enough?" I thought about 8 months of slow death, about Marcus kissing Rebecca while I lay dying, about the cheap funeral and the villa in Tuscany and the champagne toast celebrating my impending death. "I'm strong enough," I said. "I'm more than strong enough." That night I barely slept, not from fear, but from anticipation. In the morning, Marcus would walk into my hospital room expecting to find his dying wife, and instead, he'd find the woman who'd orchestrated his downfall. The woman he'd tried to kill, who'd been 10 steps ahead of him the whole time. At 5 a.m., Detective Morrison came in, this time in full police uniform. "They're in position at both locations," she said. "Rebecca's apartment and your house. We'll hit them simultaneously in 55 minutes. "Where do you want me?" I asked. "Right here. We'll bring him to you after the arrest. He'll be cuffed, secured. You'll be completely safe." "I'm not worried about my safety." "I know, but I am." Morrison smiled slightly. "You're the star witness in a murder conspiracy case. The DA would kill me if anything happened to you now." At 5:40, Morrison got the call. "Teams are moving in. 3 minutes." I imagined the scene at my house. Marcus probably still asleep, thinking he'd come back to the hospital later, play the grieving husband one more time. And then his door crashing and police flooding his bedroom, handcuffs snapping shut around his wrists while he tried to process what was happening. Morrison's radio crackled. "Suspect 1 in custody, suspect 2 in custody, both secured." "It's done," Morrison said quietly. "They've got them both." Sophie started crying. David put his arm around her, his own eyes wet. Janet squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "How long until they bring him here?" I asked. 30 minutes, maybe less." Morrison checked her watch. "Are you ready?" "I've been ready for 8 months." 26 minutes later, I heard the commotion in the hallway. Raised voices, the jingle of handcuffs, heavy footsteps. Morrison positioned herself between me and the door. David and Sophie stood back watching. Janet stood beside my bed, protective. The door opened. 2 officers came in first, then Marcus between them, hands cuffed behind his back. He was still in his pajamas, hair, wild eyes frantic. When he saw me sitting up in bed, very much alive and alert, he stopped dead. "Eleanor," his voice cracked. "What's going on?" "Why am I being arrested?" "Arsenic," I said calmly. 8 months of arsenic in my vitamin supplements. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" His face went through a remarkable transformation. Confusion to understanding, to fear, to rage, in the space of 3 seconds. "You knew," he said slowly. "You knew this whole time. Not the whole time, but long enough." I smiled at him, and it felt like showing teeth. "Long enough to change my will. Long enough to record your confession. Long enough to make sure you get nothing. Not my money, not my house, not my life insurance. Nothing." "That's impossible. I'm your husband. I'm entitled—" "You're entitled to a prison cell," Janet cut in. 25 to life for attempted murder, plus conspiracy fraud and about 15 other charges I'm personally going to make stick. Marcus looked at her, then back at me. "You set me up. This whole thing, the dying, the hospital, it was all a setup. You were actually killing me," I said, and my voice went cold. "I didn't have to set you up. You did this to yourself." "We have recordings," Morrison added, "of you and Ms. Chen discussing the life insurance, the murder, everything. You confessed last night on her balcony. We have it all on tape." I watched the reality sink in, watched Marcus realize that he'd lost everything. His freedom, his future, the money he'd tried to steal, the woman he'd betrayed me for. All of it gone. "You can't do this," he said desperately. "I'm your husband. I love you. This is all a misunderstanding." "You planned my funeral," I interrupted, "while I was alive, while you thought I was dying. You picked out the cheapest casket and booked a villa in Tuscany and celebrated with champagne." I leaned forward slightly. "Did you ever love me, Marcus, even in the beginning, or was it always about the money?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The silence was admission enough. "Get him out of here," Morrison said to the officers. "Mrs. Whitmore needs her rest." They started to drag him toward the door. He twisted back, eyes wild. "You're still sick," he shouted. "The poison's still in you. You're still going to die, just slower. I still win." "Actually," Dr. Chen said, stepping into the room, "with proper chelation therapy and time, Mrs. Whitmore should make a full recovery. The human body is remarkably resilient when you stop actively trying to kill it." Marcus's face went slack with shock. Then the officers pulled him through the door and he was gone. I could hear him screaming in the hallway, but the sound faded as they took him away. I sat back against my pillows, suddenly exhausted. "Is it really over?" Sophie asked quietly. "Not quite," Janet said. "There's still the trial." "But yes, the worst is over." "What about Rebecca?" David asked. "Being booked as we speak," Morrison said. "She's trying to claim she didn't know about the poison, that it was all Marcus's idea, but we have texts from her burner phone encouraging him, discussing the life insurance planning, what they'd do with the money. She's just as guilty as he is." I closed my eyes, let the reality wash over me. It was done. Not finished, not completely, but done. Marcus was in custody. Rebecca was in custody. I was alive. My children were safe. My money was protected. "Mom," Sophie's voice was small. "What happens now?" I opened my eyes, looked at my daughter, my son, my sister, my family. The people who'd stood by me, helped me, believed in me. "Now we heal," I said. "All of us, together." But healing turned out to be more complicated than I'd anticipated. The news of Marcus's arrest spread through our social circle like wildfire. By noon, my phone was exploding with calls and texts from friends, colleagues, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know if it was true, if Marcus had really tried to kill me, if I was really dying, or if that had been a lie too. "Don't answer any of them," Janet advised, scrolling through the messages on my phone. "The DA's office will issue a statement. You need to focus on getting better." "I need to know what people are saying," I argued, reaching for the phone. She pulled it away. "What people are saying is ugly, Elle. Trust me on this. You don't need that poison in your head right now." But I found out anyway. Sophie made the mistake of checking social media and burst into tears in the hospital bathroom. David found her there 20 minutes later and came to get me, fury radiating off him like heat. "There are people defending him," he said through clenched teeth, "saying you must have driven him to it, that successful men don't just try to murder their wives for no reason, that you probably deserved it." "David," I said carefully, "there will always be people who blame the victim. You can't let them get to you." "They're saying Mom's a gold digger," Sophie said, coming out of the bathroom with red eyes. "That she married Dad for his money, and when he tried to leave her, she made up this whole elaborate scheme to frame him." "But that's insane," David exploded. "Mom had her own money before they even got married. Grandpa left her millions. Dad was a middle manager at a consulting firm when they met." "Facts don't matter to some people," Janet said grimly. "They just want a story that makes sense to them. And it's easier to believe a woman is lying than to accept that a man they know could be capable of murder." My phone rang. An unknown number. Janet answered it, listened for a moment, then hung up. "Reporter," she said, "wanting an exclusive interview." "I'm turning your phone off." "No," I said. "I want to know who's calling. I want to know what they're saying." "Eleanor." "Janet, I spent 8 months being poisoned and I didn't break. I can handle some phone calls." She looked at me for a long moment, then handed over the phone. It rang again immediately. Another unknown number. I answered. "Mrs. Whitmore." A woman's voice, professional, eager. "This is Amanda Torres from Channel 7 News. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about—" "No comment," I said, and hung up. It rang again. Different number, different reporter. I hung up again, and again, and again. "They're circling like sharks," David muttered, watching from the window. "There's a news van in the parking lot." "Of course there is," I said. "Attempted murder, wealthy victim, sex scandal. It's perfect tabloid fodder." The door opened and Dr. Chen came in looking harried. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need to talk to you about security. We've had 3 reporters try to access this floor in the last hour. One of them tried to bribe a nurse for your room number." "Jesus," Sophie breathed. "I've contacted hospital security, and they're tightening protocols, but I think it might be wise to consider moving you to a private facility, somewhere more secure." "No," I said immediately. "I'm not hiding. I'm not running. I did nothing wrong." "I know that, but your safety is fine. Post a guard if you need to, but I'm staying here until I'm medically cleared to leave." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "Okay, but Eleanor, please be careful. The media attention can be overwhelming, and you're still recovering. Your body has been through tremendous trauma." She left, and Janet's phone rang. She stepped into the hallway to take it, came back looking thunderous. "That was the DA's office. Rebecca made bail." "What?" I sat up straight, ignoring the pull of the IV. "How is that possible? She's a flight risk." Her parents put up their house, and apparently she has a very expensive lawyer who argued that she's not a danger to the community, that the evidence against her is circumstantial. Janet's jaw was tight. The DA tried to block it, but the judge allowed it with conditions: ankle monitor, surrender of passport, no contact with Marcus or you. "She's just going to run," David said. "The moment she gets a chance, she's gone." "Not if I can help it," Janet said darkly. "I'm going to make it my personal mission to make sure she doesn't take a step without someone watching." "Where's Marcus?" I asked. "Still in county lockup. They denied his bail. Too much of a flight risk plus the severity of the charges." Janet smiled grimly. "He'll stay there until trial." "Good," I said, and meant it. The thought of Marcus out on the streets, free to come after me or intimidate witnesses, made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it before Janet could stop me. "You lying bitch! You ruined his life! I hope you rot in hell!" I stared at it for a moment, then showed it to Janet. Her face went white, then red. "That's it," she said, snatching the phone. "I'm getting you a new number, and we're filing a police report. This is harassment." "It's just words," I said, but my hands were shaking. "It's a threat," Janet corrected, "and we're taking it seriously." More texts came in, some supportive, some vicious. Someone had leaked my number online, and now everyone with an opinion felt entitled to share it with me directly. Janet powered down my phone and handed it to Detective Morrison, who'd appeared in the doorway. "We'll trace these," Morrison said, scrolling through the messages. "Most of them are probably just trolls, but we need to check. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm assigning an officer to your door, 24/7 until we're confident there's no credible threat." "This is insane," Sophie said. "Mom's the victim here. She's the one who was almost murdered. Why is she being treated like the criminal?" "Because people are scared," Morrison said quietly. "Your mother did something most victims don't do. She fought back. She planned. She won. And that terrifies a certain type of person because it means they can't dismiss her as weak or stupid or complicit in her own victimization. So they attack her instead," David said bitterly. "Exactly." Morrison looked at me. "Mrs. Whitmore, I know this is difficult, but try to remember that the loudest voices aren't always the majority. Most people are on your side. They're just not making death threats on social media." A uniformed officer appeared and stationed himself outside my door. I could see him through the glass, standing at attention, hand near his weapon. The reality of the situation hit me all at once. I wasn't just recovering from poisoning. I was at the center of a media firestorm. I was a target. "I need some air," I said, starting to get out of bed. "Mom, you can't leave the room," Sophie said, alarmed. "Then open a window. I need to breathe." But there were no windows that opened. Hospital regulations. So I stood there, IV pole in hand, feeling trapped in my own protection. This was what victory looked like. This was what justice felt like. And it was suffocating. Janet made phone calls. The DA, a publicist, she knew someone from victim services. David went home to pack me some real clothes, things that didn't open in the back. Sophie stayed holding my hand, not saying much, but being present. That was enough. Around 3 p.m, Dr. Chen came back with news. "Your latest blood work shows significant improvement," she said, checking her tablet. "The chelation therapy is working. Your liver enzymes are stabilizing. If this continues, we might be able to discharge you in 3 to 4 days." "And then what?" I asked. "I can't go home." "That house is full of memories of him, of us, of 28 years of marriage that turned out to be built on lies. You'll stay with me," Janet said immediately. "As long as you need. My place is secure and there's plenty of room." "I have a job," I protested weakly. "A life. You're retired, Elle, and your life just got turned upside down. Let me take care of you for once." I wanted to argue, but she was right. I couldn't go back to that house. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The thought of walking through rooms Marcus had walked through, sleeping in a bed he'd slept in while planning my death, it made me physically ill. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you." The evening news ran the story. David found a stream on his phone and we watched it together, morbidly fascinated. They showed my house Marcus being led out in handcuffs, a photo of Rebecca from her company website. The anchor spoke in grave tones about betrayal and attempted murder and the wealthy widow who'd outsmarted her killer husband. "They're making it sound like a movie," Sophie said, disgusted. "Because to them it is," Janet said. "They don't see the real people involved, just characters in a story." My photo flashed on screen, an old one from a charity gala 3 years ago. I looked happy in it, standing next to Marcus in evening wear, both of us smiling for the camera, neither of us knowing that in 3 years he'd be trying to kill me and I'd be fighting for my life. "Jesus, Mom, you look so different," David said, comparing the photo to my current appearance. 8 months of arsenic will do that," I said dryly. The news segment ended with the anchor promising updates as they developed. Then they moved on to sports, because attempted murder was just another story, just another 15-minute segment before the weather. "Turn it off," I said, suddenly exhausted. David did, and the room fell silent except for the beep of my monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital. "I'm tired," I said. "I need to sleep." "We'll stay," Sophie said immediately. "No, go home, both of you. Get some rest. I have a guard outside and Janet's here. I'll be fine." They argued, but eventually left. Janet made calls from the corner, her voice low and urgent, handling details I didn't want to know about. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but all I could see was Marcus's face when he realized I'd won. The shock, the rage, the fear. I'd done this to him. I'd set him up, recorded him, destroyed his life, and I felt no guilt. None. Just a cold satisfaction that justice was being served. Was that normal? Was I supposed to feel bad about ruining my attempted murderer's life? The therapist the hospital had sent seemed to think I should be processing more grief, more betrayal. But all I felt was anger and vindication, and a burning need to see this through to the end. "You're not sleeping," Janet said from across the room. "Can't turn my brain off." She came over, sat in the chair beside my bed. "Talk to me. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the trial, about having to testify, about every detail of my marriage being picked apart in public." I opened my eyes, looked at her. "I'm thinking about how much worse this is going to get before it gets better." "Probably a lot worse," she agreed. "Marcus's lawyer is going to come after you hard. They're going to paint you as manipulative, vengeful, a woman scorned who fabricated evidence." "I have recordings." "Which they'll claim were taken out of context, or doctored, or obtained illegally." She squeezed my hand. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. This is going to be a war, Elle, and it's going to be fought in public, in the media, in the courtroom." "I'm ready." "Are you? Because ready means having your entire life examined. Every fight you and Marcus ever had, every harsh word, every moment of unhappiness in your marriage. They're going to use all of it to create reasonable doubt." "What if they succeed?" The question I'd been avoiding finally came out. What if he walks? What if all of this was for nothing? Then we come after him in civil court. Wrongful death attempt, if that's even a thing. We sue him for everything he's worth. We make his life a living hell until he wishes he'd stayed in prison. Janet's eyes were fierce. "But I don't think it's going to come to that. The evidence is solid. The recordings are clear. The arsenic in your system is undeniable. He's going down, Elle. I promise you that." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But I'd spent 28 years trusting someone who'd been lying to me the whole time. Trust didn't come easy anymore. The next day brought new developments. Rebecca's lawyer held a press conference, and Sophie made the mistake of watching it in my hospital room. "Ms. Chen is a victim in this situation," the lawyer said smoothly, a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled hair and a designer suit. She was manipulated by Mr. Whitmore, led to believe that his marriage was already over, that Mrs. Whitmore was aware of the relationship and accepting of it. Ms. Chen had no knowledge of any poisoning, any murder plot. She is simply a young woman who fell in love with the wrong man. "That's bullshit," David exploded, snatching the phone from Sophie. She was texting him about the life insurance. She knew. Of course she knew, Janet said already on her phone with the DA. And we're going to prove it. This is just her lawyer doing damage control, trying to get ahead of the narrative. It's working, Sophie said miserably. Look at the comments. People are sympathizing with her, calling her naive and innocent and young. I looked at the screen. Sophie was right. The comments were overwhelmingly sympathetic to Rebecca. Poor girl seduced by an older man. She couldn't have known. She's the real victim here. The wife is probably exaggerating everything for attention and money. They're calling me a liar, I said, reading through them. They're saying I fabricated the whole thing. Stop reading, Janet ordered, closing the laptop. These people don't matter. The jury is what matters. And the jury will hear the evidence, not internet speculation. But it did matter. It mattered that people thought I was lying. It mattered that Rebecca was being painted as innocent. It mattered that my attempted murder was being reframed as a lover's quarrel blown out of proportion. I want to make a statement, I said suddenly. I want to tell my side. Absolutely not, Janet said immediately. Anything you say publicly can be used in court. You stay silent until trial. But they're controlling the narrative. They're making me look like the villain. Let them. The truth will come out in court, and when it does, everyone who defended them will look like fools. Janet's voice was firm. Trust the process, Elle. Trust the evidence. Don't give them ammunition by speaking out of turn. I hated it, but she was right. So I stayed silent while the media circus grew. More reporters camped outside the hospital. More think pieces about gold-digging wives and innocent mistresses. More people weighing in with opinions about a situation they knew nothing about. On the third day, Detective Morrison came in with her phone. You need to see this, she said, pulling up a video. It went viral an hour ago. It was Rebecca doing an interview with some podcast that specialized in true crime. She was crying, dabbing her eyes with tissues, telling her side of the story. I thought he loved me, she said, her voice breaking. He told me his marriage was over, that his wife knew about us, that they were just waiting for the right time to divorce. I had no idea he was poisoning her, no idea he was planning anything violent. When I found out, I was devastated. I've been used, manipulated, lied to just as much as Eleanor has. Turn it off, I said, but Morrison kept playing. And now Eleanor is claiming I was part of some murder conspiracy, which is absolutely false. I'm a victim here too. I'm 28 years old. I thought I was in love. I thought I'd found my person. Instead, I got caught up in the schemes of a desperate man, and now my whole life is ruined because of it. The interviewer made sympathetic noises, asked gentle questions, let Rebecca paint herself as innocent, naive, betrayed. The comments on the video were even worse than before. She's lying, I said flatly. Every word of that is a lie. We know, Morrison said, but she's good, very good. She's getting ahead of the trial, shaping public opinion. Her lawyer is smart. So what do? We counter it with facts. The DA is preparing to release some of the evidence, the texts between Rebecca and Marcus, the recordings. Not all of it, but enough to show she's lying. When? Today, this afternoon, they're holding a press conference. I watched Rebecca's video again. Her big, tearful eyes, her trembling voice, her perfect performance as the innocent victim. And I realized something. She wasn't afraid of going to prison. She was afraid of losing the court of public opinion. Because if she could convince enough people she was innocent, she could poison the jury pool, create doubt, maybe even walk free. She's going to get away with it, I said quietly. Isn't she? Not if I have anything to say about it, Janet said fiercely, and neither will he. The DA's press conference happened at 3. We watched it on the hospital TV, the room crowded with me, Janet, David, Sophie, Detective Morrison, and 2 uniformed officers who'd become a permanent fixture outside my door. The district attorney was a woman named Patricia Reeves, mid-40s, with short gray hair and the kind of face that had seen too much human ugliness to be shocked by anything anymore. She stood at a podium flanked by Morrison and 2 other detectives. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice carrying authority. I'm here to address some misinformation that's been circulating about the case against Marcus Whitmore and Rebecca Chen. First, let me be absolutely clear. This is not a case of a marriage gone wrong or a love triangle. This is attempted murder conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. We have significant evidence supporting these charges. She pulled out a folder, began reading excerpts from text messages. Rebecca to Marcus about the life insurance. Marcus to Rebecca about the arsenic being undetectable. Back and forth planning about what they'd do with the money, how they'd split it, where they'd live once I was dead. These messages were found on a burner phone registered to Ms. Chen and purchased with her credit card, Reeves continued. They show clear knowledge and participation in the plot to murder Eleanor Whitmore. This is not a naive young woman caught up in something she didn't understand. This is a calculated co-conspirator. The reporters erupted with questions. Reeves held up her hand for silence. We also have audio recordings of Mr. Whitmore and Ms. Chen discussing Mrs. Whitmore's imminent death, the insurance payout, and their plans for the future. These recordings were obtained legally and will be presented at trial. I want to be very clear that Eleanor Whitmore is the victim in this case. She is a woman who survived a prolonged poisoning attempt and had the courage to build a case against her attackers. She deserves our support, not suspicion. Mrs. Reeves, a reporter called out, Rebecca Chen's lawyer says these texts and recordings are being taken out of context, that they show an affair, not a murder plot. Then I invite Ms. Chen and her lawyer to explain the context in which discussing someone's life insurance payout while they're dying in the hospital is acceptable, Reeves said coldly. I invite them to explain the context in which celebrating that death with champagne is normal behavior. There is no context that makes this okay. Another reporter. What about claims that Mrs. Whitmore fabricated evidence that she set up Mr. Whitmore? Mrs. Whitmore has arsenic in her system. Medical fact. That arsenic came from supplements prepared by Mr. Whitmore. Also fact. Everything else, the recordings, the will change, those were protective measures taken by a woman who realized her husband was trying to kill her. She's not the criminal here. She's the survivor. I watched Reeves defend me, fight for me, and felt something loosen in my chest. Someone believed me. Someone powerful, someone who could actually do something about this believed me. She's good, David said quietly. She's better than good, Janet said. She's going to eat them alive in court. The press conference ended, but the fallout continued. Social media exploded again this time, split between people who believed me and people who thought the DA was covering up a vindictive wife's scheme. The hashtags were brutal. Justice for Eleanor. Believe survivors. But also, innocent until proven guilty. Free Rebecca. Marcus Whitmore innocent. Stop looking at that, Sophie said, trying to take my phone. I need to know what I'm up against. You're up against public opinion, which is fickle and mean and doesn't matter, Janet said. What matters is the evidence. What matters is the jury, and we have both of those on our side. That night alone in my hospital room, I couldn't sleep again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face. Not from the arrest, but from years ago, from our wedding day, from the birth of our children, from 1,000 small moments when I thought we were happy, thought we were in love, thought we had a future together. Had any of it been real? Had he ever loved me at all? Or had I just been a means to an end, a bank account with a pulse, a woman foolish enough to trust him with everything? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, expecting another death threat or accusation. But curiosity won. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. You don't have to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Rebecca. I stared at the message for a long time. Was this real? Was she actually apologizing? Or was this another manipulation, another attempt to paint herself as repentant and worthy of sympathy? I showed it to Janet the next morning. She went pale, then red. She violated her bail conditions. No contact means no contact. She was already calling the DA. This could get her bail revoked. Maybe that's not what she wants, I said slowly. Maybe she wants me to respond. Maybe she's trying to bait me into saying something she can use in court. Janet paused, phone halfway to her ear. You might be right. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge it at all. I'll forward this to Reeves and Morrison. Let them handle it. But the messages kept coming. Throughout the day, every few hours, another text from Rebecca, each one more desperate than the last. "Please talk to me. I need to explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. He said you were already dying. I loved him. I thought he loved me. I didn't know what he was really doing. You have to believe me. I'm not a monster. Please, Eleanor, please. I'm begging you. Just talk to me for 5 minutes." And each message felt like a hook, trying to snag me, pull me into a conversation that could only hurt me. But it was hard. So hard. Because part of me, the part that had liked Rebecca at that Christmas party, the part that had thought she was sweet and professional, that part wanted to believe her apology was real. "She's scared," Detective Morrison said, reviewing the messages. "Her lawyer probably told her how bad things look. She's panicking, trying to get you to show mercy, maybe even get you to speak on her behalf." "That's insane," Sophie said. "She tried to help kill Mom. Why would Mom ever help her?" "Because juries like redemption stories," Morrison said grimly. "If Rebecca can get Eleanor to forgive her, to say she was just young and stupid and manipulated, it plays well in court, makes her sympathetic." "I'm not helping her," I said flatly. "Good, because helping her means hurting yourself. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them." But the messages didn't stop. They got more frantic, more emotional, more desperate. And then on the 4th day, they stopped completely. No explanation, just silence. "Her lawyer probably confiscated her phone," Janet said. "Or the DA moved to revoke her bail based on the contact violation." It was the latter. That afternoon, Detective Morrison came in with news. Rebecca Chen was taken back into custody this morning. Bail revoked. She'll stay in county lockup until trial. Morrison smiled grimly. "Turns out judges don't like it when you violate no contact orders by repeatedly texting your victim." "Good." I said and meant it. Rebecca might be young, might claim to be manipulated, but she'd known. She'd celebrated my impending death. She'd counted my money before I was even dead. She deserved whatever she got. Dr. Chen cleared me for discharge 3 days later. My liver enzymes were stabilizing. The arsenic levels in my blood were dropping, and physically I was strong enough to continue treatment as an outpatient. Mentally, I wasn't sure I'd ever be strong enough to face what was coming, but I didn't have a choice. "You'll need to come back twice a week for chelation therapy," Dr. Chen explained, going over my discharge papers. "And I want weekly blood work to monitor your progress. No alcohol, plenty of water, and this list of supplements to help your body heal." "Supplements," I repeated, and heard the bitterness in my own voice. "That's ironic." "These are prescribed by me and will be filled at the hospital pharmacy," she said gently. "You'll watch them prepare them. You'll know exactly what's in them. Eleanor, I know this is traumatic, but you have to trust the medical process." "I trust you," I said. "It's everyone else I'm having trouble with." Janet had been busy while I was recovering. She'd hired a security company to sweep her house for bugs and cameras. She'd changed all the locks, installed a new alarm system, and hired a private security guard to patrol the property. Her guest room had been converted into a mini fortress, complete with panic buttons and reinforced windows. "This is insane," I said, walking through her house for the first time in 6 months. "Jan, you didn't have to do all this?" "Yes, I did. Marcus knows where I live. So does Rebecca. And both of them have friends, family people who might decide to take matters into their own hands." She showed me the panic button beside the bed. "I'm not taking any chances with your safety." David and Sophie helped me settle in, unpacking the few belongings I'd asked them to bring from my house. Clothes, toiletries, a few photos from before Marcus ruined everything. I couldn't bring myself to ask for anything else. That house wasn't mine anymore. It was a crime scene, a place where my husband had systematically poisoned me for 8 months while smiling and kissing me goodnight. "Mom," Sophie said hesitantly, "what do you want us to do with Dad's things? His clothes, his office, everything?" "Burn it," I said immediately. Then more calmly, "Actually, no. Box it up. The lawyers might need it as evidence. Put it in storage somewhere. I don't want to see any of it ever again." "What about your things? Your furniture, your photos, your life?" David asked. "I don't know yet. I can't think about it right now." I sat on Janet's guest bed, feeling suddenly exhausted. One crisis at a time. They left eventually, promising to come back for dinner. Janet made tea, and we sat in her living room, the afternoon sun streaming through windows. I couldn't stop checking for threats. "You're safe here," Janet said, reading my anxiety. "The security system is top of the line. No one gets in without us knowing." "I know. Logically, I know that. But I can't turn off the part of my brain that's waiting for the next attack." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "He lived with me for 28 years, Jan. He knew everything about me. My routines, my passwords, my fears. What if he told Rebecca? What if she told someone else? What if—" "Stop," Janet interrupted firmly. "You can't live in what-ifs. They'll drive you crazy. Marcus is in jail. Rebecca is in jail. You have security, you have family, you have an entire legal system working to protect you. The same legal system that lets defense attorneys destroy victims on the stand. That legal system—" Janet was quiet for a moment. "Yeah," she admitted finally. "That one. But Elle, you're not a typical victim. You have resources, you have evidence, and you have me. I'm not going to let anyone destroy you in court, I promise." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But I'd believed Marcus when he said he loved me, and look how that turned out. My new phone rang. The DA's office. I answered with shaking hands. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is Patricia Reeves. I wanted to update you on the case status. We've set a trial date, March 15th. That gives us 4 months to prepare." 4 months, I repeated. That's a long time. It's actually quite fast for a case this complex, but given the media attention and the severity of the charges, the judge agreed to expedite. Reeves paused. "I need you to come to my office next week. We need to start prepping your testimony." "What does that involve?" "I'm going to ask you every question the defense will ask. I'm going to challenge your story, poke holes in your timeline, make you uncomfortable. Not because I don't believe you, but because I need to know how you'll hold up under cross-examination. The defense is going to come at you hard, Mrs. Whitmore. I need to make sure you're ready." "I'm ready," I said, trying to sound confident. "We'll see. Tuesday at 10. Bring your sister if you want. This isn't going to be pleasant." She hung up, and I sat there staring at my phone. 4 months until trial. 4 months of preparation and media scrutiny and waiting for the next shoe to drop. 4 months of my life on hold while lawyers argued over whether my husband had really tried to kill me or if I was just a vindictive woman seeking attention. "You okay?" Janet asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." The next few days were a blur of appointments. Victim services counseling, where a well-meaning therapist tried to get me to process my trauma, and I mostly sat in silence. Follow-up medical appointments where Dr. Chen poked and prodded and assured me I was healing. Meetings with Janet's security team, learning codes and protocols, and what to do if someone tried to breach the house. And through it all, the media circus continued. Marcus's lawyer held a press conference announcing his client's innocence. Rebecca's parents went on morning talk shows crying about their daughter's manipulation by an older man. My face was everywhere, analyzed and critiqued and discussed by people who'd never met me. "You've lost weight," one tabloid headline read next to an unflattering photo of me leaving the hospital. "Poison diet, how Eleanor Whitmore got revenge body." "They're monsters," Sophie said, slamming the magazine shut. "Actual monsters. You were dying and they're making jokes about your weight." "Let them," I said tiredly. "It doesn't matter." But it did matter. Every cruel headline chipped away at my armor a little more. Every think piece about gold-digging wives and innocent mistresses made me question my own reality. Every death threat in my inbox reminded me that there were people out there who thought I deserved what Marcus had done to me. "You need to stop reading the comments," David said, taking my phone for the 3rd time that day. "Seriously, Mom, nothing good ever came from reading internet comments." "I need to know what the jury pool is seeing, what they're thinking." "The jury will be instructed to ignore media coverage," Janet reminded me, "and we'll have extensive jury selection to weed out anyone too biased to be impartial." "That's naive, and you know it. Everyone who shows up for jury duty will have heard about this case. Everyone will have an opinion." "Then we find 12 people whose opinion is that evidence matters more than gossip," Janet said firmly. "It's possible, Elle. I've done it before." Tuesday came too quickly. Janet drove me to the DA's office, a bland government building downtown with too much security and not enough windows. Patricia Reeves met us in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and desperation. "Mrs. Whitmore, thank you for coming." She gestured to a chair. "Before we start, I want to be clear about something. The questions I'm about to ask you are going to be invasive, personal, and sometimes cruel. That's intentional." The defense attorney, his name is Marcus, hired Thomas Brennan, one of the best in the state. Brennan's going to try to paint you as a lying, manipulative woman who fabricated this entire thing because you couldn't handle your husband having an affair. I need to know if you can withstand that kind of attack. "I can," I said, trying to sound certain. "We'll see. Let's start with the timeline. You claim you first suspected something was wrong 8 months ago. What specifically made you suspicious?" And so it began. 3 hours of brutal questioning. Reeves attacked every aspect of my story, questioned every decision, challenged every piece of evidence. Why didn't I go to the police immediately? Why did I wait? How did I know it was Marcus and not someone else? Wasn't it convenient that I changed my will right before confronting him? Wasn't this whole setup just a vindictive wife's elaborate revenge scheme? "You secretly recorded your husband," Reeves said, playing devil's advocate. "Some might say that's entrapment, that you deliberately provoked him into making incriminating statements." "He was poisoning me," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I was dying. I needed proof or no one would believe me." "But you weren't dying, were you? You said yourself that Dr. Chen figured out it was arsenic poisoning and started treatment. You knew you were going to survive." "I didn't know that. Not for sure. Arsenic does permanent damage. I could still die from complications." "Could, but probably won't. So you let your husband continue to believe you were dying, let him plan your funeral record, him discussing the insurance money, all while knowing you were going to survive and use those recordings against him. That's quite calculated, Mrs. Whitmore." I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and walk out, but I forced myself to stay calm, to breathe, to remember this was practice. "Yes, it was calculated," I said slowly. "Because my husband spent 8 months calculating how to murder me. I spent a few days calculating how to prove it. I don't think those are morally equivalent." Reeves smiled slightly. "Good. That's good. Use that. The defense is going to try to make you look cold and calculating. Own it. You're smart, you're strategic, and those qualities saved your life. That's not a character flaw, it's survival." She grilled me for another hour, about my marriage, about my finances, about every fight Marcus and I had ever had. She dug into my past relationships, my friendships, anything that could be used to paint me as unreliable or vindictive. "You and your sister didn't speak for 2 years after your parents died," Reeves said, reading from notes. "There was a dispute over the inheritance. Your father left you significantly more than he left Janet. Some might say you have a history of manipulating family relationships for financial gain." "That was different," I said, feeling defensive. "Dad left me more because I was his primary caregiver in his final years. Jan lived across the country. She understood that." "Did she? Or did she just accept it because fighting would have torn the family apart?" Reeves leaned forward. "The defense is going to use every piece of your history to create a narrative of you as someone who uses people who manipulate situations for personal gain. You need to be ready to counter that." "How?" I asked desperately. "How do I counter decades of my life being twisted into something ugly? By telling the truth, clearly, calmly, consistently, by not letting them rattle you, by remembering that the evidence is on your side." She closed her folder. "You did well today, Mrs. Whitmore. Better than most victims in your situation. But we have a lot more work to do." I left that meeting feeling like I'd been through a wood chipper. Janet took one look at my face and drove us straight home without a word. I collapsed on her couch and didn't move for 2 hours. "She's just preparing you," Janet said finally. "Reeves is tough, but she's good. She'll make sure you're ready." "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted. "Sit on that stand and have Marcus's lawyer call me a liar to my face. Watch him try to convince 12 strangers that I'm the villain in this story. You can do it because you have to. Because if you don't, he wins. He tried to kill you, and he wins." Janet sat beside me, took my hand. "I know this is hell. I know it's not fair, but you're strong enough. I've seen you survive the impossible already." That night, I dreamed about Marcus. Not the Marcus who'd tried to kill me, but the one I'd married. Young, ambitious, full of plans for our future. He was asking me to dance at our wedding, spinning me across the floor while everyone watched and smiled. And then suddenly he was pressing a pill into my hand, another vitamin, another dose of poison, and I was swallowing it while he smiled and told me he loved me. I woke up gasping, covered in sweat. The panic button was in my hand, though I didn't remember reaching for it. Janet burst into the room 3 seconds later, eyes wild. "What happened? Are you okay? Is someone here?" "Just a nightmare," I managed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to press it." But I had meant to. On some level, I'd woken up so terrified that my instinct was to call for help, because even in sleep, I wasn't safe from Marcus. Janet stayed with me until I fell back asleep, sitting in the chair beside my bed like I was a child afraid of monsters. Except my monster was real, and he was sitting in a jail cell planning his defense, figuring out how to convince the world he was the real victim. The next few weeks fell into a grim routine. Twice weekly medical appointments, weekly meetings with the DA's office, daily therapy sessions. I mostly spent in angry silence. David and Sophie visited often, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. We watched movies, played cards, pretended that life was normal, even though everything had changed. "I went by the house yesterday," David said one evening over dinner at Janet's, "to get some more of your things. There were reporters outside, 3 of them just sitting in their cars waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked. "For you to come home, I guess, for some kind of dramatic moment they can photograph." He pushed food around his plate. "One of them tried to interview me, asked how I felt about my father being an attempted murderer. I told him to go to hell." "David," I said automatically, then stopped. What was I going to do, scold him for bad language? His father had tried to kill me. He'd earned the right to tell reporters to go to hell. "They're outside Janet's place too," Sophie added. "I counted 4 vans this morning. They're watching everything." "Let them watch," Janet said dismissively. "They'll get bored eventually." But they didn't get bored. If anything, the media attention intensified as the trial date approached. Every new development was breaking news. Marcus's lawyers filed motions to suppress evidence. The DA filed counter-motions. Jury selection was scheduled. Expert witnesses were lined up. And through it all, my face was plastered across every news outlet analyzed and judged by millions of strangers. Eleanor Whitmore, victim or villain? Read one headline next to side-by-side photos of me and Rebecca. They'd chosen the most flattering photo possible of Rebecca young and fresh-faced and innocent-looking. For me, they'd used the hospital photo where I looked gaunt and angry and half dead. "They're building a narrative," Janet explained when I showed her. "Rebecca is young, pretty sympathetic. You're older, wealthy, potentially vindictive. They're trying to make the jury relate to her instead of you. How do we fight that? By letting them see you, the real you, not the angry woman in the hospital photo, but the woman who survived 8 months of poisoning and was smart enough to build a case against her attackers. You tell your story, you show your evidence, and you let the jury decide who they believe." What if they believe her? They won't. Not once they hear the recordings, see the texts, understand the timeline. Rebecca sealed her own fate when she sent you those desperate text messages. She showed her guilt. I wanted to believe Janet, but belief was in short supply these days. I'd believed Marcus loved me. I'd believed our marriage was solid. I'd believed in a lot of things that turned out to be lies. 6 weeks before trial, Marcus's lawyer requested a meeting. Not with me directly, but with Patricia Reeves. A plea deal was on the table. "He's willing to plead guilty to reckless endangerment," Reeves explained over the phone. "Admit he gave you the arsenic, but claim he didn't know it would hurt you, that he thought it was a harmless supplement. 7 years eligible for parole in 4. 7 years? I repeated, my voice rising. "He tried to murder me for 8 months, and he gets 7 years. It's a starting position for negotiation. I can probably get them up to 15, maybe 20 with no parole. But Eleanor, I need to tell you something. Trials are unpredictable. Juries are unpredictable. There's always a chance, however small, that they could acquit. A plea deal guarantees prison time." "No," I said immediately. "No plea deal. I want a trial. I want him to sit in that courtroom and listen to every piece of evidence. I want the world to know exactly what he did." even if that means testifying, even if that means being cross-examined by Brennan, who will do everything in his power to destroy your credibility. Yes, even then. Reeves was quiet for a moment. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll reject the plea offer. We go to trial. But Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to understand what you're signing up for. This is going to be brutal. Brennan is going to attack your character, your marriage, your motives. He's going to suggest you drove Marcus to this, that your wealth, your success, your independence emasculated him, and he lashed out in desperation. That's insane. That's defense strategy. He'll paint Marcus as a victim of a controlling wife, Rebecca as a victim of a manipulative older man, and you as the puppet master behind it all." "Let him try," I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. "I have the truth, I have the evidence, and I have nothing left to lose." After I hung up, I realized that was true. I'd already lost everything that mattered: my marriage, my health, my sense of safety. What more could they take? My reputation. They'd already dragged that through the mud. My privacy. Gone the moment Marcus was arrested. My peace of mind destroyed 8 months ago when I swallowed the first poisoned pill. I had nothing left to lose, which made me more dangerous than they realized. Because a woman with nothing to lose doesn't back down. She doesn't compromise. She fights until someone wins, and she's betting everything on it being her. David found me on Janet's back porch that evening, staring at nothing. "I heard you rejected the plea deal," he said, sitting beside me. "You heard right?" "Good. He doesn't deserve any deals. He deserves to rot." David was quiet for a moment. "Mom, can I ask you something? And will you be honest with me?" "Of course." "Do you ever wish you'd just let him get away with it? Died without knowing, without all this pain and stress and public humiliation?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally, "because dying in ignorance would have meant he won completely. He got my life, my money, my future, and I never even knew I'd been betrayed. This way at least I get to fight back. At least I get to look him in the eye and show him I'm stronger than he thought." "Are you, though, stronger?" I looked at my son, saw the worry in his eyes, the fear that this trial would break me completely. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I'm going to find out." The week before trial, Rebecca's lawyer made a desperate move. She gave an interview to a major news network, primetime special full hour, dedicated to her side of the story. Janet tried to stop me from watching it, but I insisted. I needed to know what the jury might have already seen, what narrative we were fighting against. Rebecca looked different than she had in the podcast interview. More polished, more mature. She wore a simple blue dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked like someone's daughter, someone's sister, not a co-conspirator in attempted murder. "I loved Marcus," she said, tears welling in carefully made-up eyes. "I know that sounds naive. I know people will judge me for it, but I did. I thought he loved me too. I thought we had a future." "Were you aware that he was poisoning his wife?" the interviewer asked gently. "No, God, no. I would never have participated in something like that. I'm not a killer. I'm just a girl who fell in love with the wrong person." She dabbed at her eyes with tissue. When I found out what he'd done, I was horrified. Absolutely horrified. But by then, it was too late. Eleanor already thought I was involved. The police already had me on their radar. "What about the text messages? The ones where you discuss the life insurance?" "Those were taken out of context. Marcus told me Eleanor knew she was dying, that she'd made peace with it, that she wanted him to be taken care of after. When we talked about the insurance, I thought we were just helping him plan for a future his dying wife had approved. I didn't know he was murdering her." "She's so full of shit," Sophie said from beside me. "She celebrated your death. She talked about the villa in Tuscany." "Shh," I said. "Let her finish." "If you could say anything to Eleanor Whitmore right now, what would it be?" the interviewer asked. Rebecca looked directly at the camera, her eyes shining with tears. "I would tell her I'm sorry, so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt her or her family. I was just a young woman who made stupid choices because I was in love, and I'm paying for those choices every day. But I want her to know that I'm not the monster the media is making me out to be. I'm just human, flawed and foolish, but human. The interview ended with the host discussing the upcoming trial, the evidence, the conflicting narratives. They brought on legal experts who debated whether Rebecca could be convicted without proof she knew about the poisoning. Half of them thought she'd walk. The other half thought she'd get minimal time, 5 years maximum. "That's it," I said, stunned. "She helps Marcus plan my murder and she gets 5 years. Maybe," Janet said carefully. "Or maybe the jury will see through her act and give her 20. We don't know yet." But I did know. I knew that Rebecca's interview had been perfect, calibrated for maximum sympathy. I knew that some of those jurors, maybe a lot of them, would watch it and feel sorry for her. Young, naive Rebecca, manipulated by an older man, caught up in something she didn't understand. It was brilliant. It was disgusting. And it might actually work. "I want to do an interview," I said suddenly. "I want to tell my side." "Absolutely not," Janet and Reeves said simultaneously. Reeves had been watching with us, analyzing Rebecca's performance. "She just spent an hour painting herself as innocent," I argued. "I need to counter that." "You counter it in court with evidence," Reeves said firmly. "You don't counter it by going on TV and potentially saying something Brennan can use against you. The jury is supposed to be impartial to decide based only on courtroom evidence. If you give interviews, you undermine that process." "The jury is going to watch her interview. You know they will, even if they're not supposed to." "Maybe. Probably. But that's not a reason to make the same mistake. You hold the line, Mrs. Whitmore. You stay quiet, you let the evidence speak, and you trust the process." I hated it. Hated sitting silent while Rebecca controlled the narrative. But Reeves was right. I had to trust the process, even though the process had failed so many victims before me. 3 days before trial, Marcus's parents called. I hadn't spoken to them since the arrest, hadn't even thought about them honestly. They lived in Florida, retired distant from our lives by choice and geography. The call came to Janet's house phone, which meant they'd done some digging to find me. "Eleanor, it's Margaret," Marcus's mother said when I answered. Her voice was cold-clipped. "We need to talk." "I don't think we have anything to talk about," I said carefully. "Our son is in jail because of you, because of your lies and manipulations. So yes, we have plenty to talk about." I should have hung up, should have handed the phone to Janet and let her deal with it. But something in me snapped. "Your son tried to kill me," I said, my voice shaking. "For 8 months he poisoned me. I have arsenic in my system, medical proof. This isn't manipulation, Margaret. It's survival." "Marcus would never hurt you. He loved you. You're just a bitter woman who couldn't accept that he'd moved on, found someone younger and prettier." The words hit like physical blows. This was Marcus's mother defending him even in the face of overwhelming evidence. This was family loyalty twisted into something toxic. "Believe what you want," I said tiredly. "But when you're sitting in that courtroom listening to the evidence, remember that I gave you the truth and you chose to reject it." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. Janet took the phone from me, made some calls, and 15 minutes later, our number was changed again. The old one disconnected. "They'll be at the trial," Janet warned. "Supporting him. You need to be ready for that." "I know." "They might make statements to the press, paint you as the villain." "I know." "Eleanor, are you sure you can handle this?" "All of it, because it's not too late to accept a plea deal. Spare yourself the trial." I looked at my sister, saw the worry etched in every line of her face. She was trying to protect me like she always had. But some things you couldn't be protected from, some things you had to face head on. "I can handle it," I said. "I have to." The morning of the trial, I woke up at 4 and couldn't fall back asleep. Janet found me in the kitchen at 5, already dressed in the navy suit we'd chosen together. Conservative, professional, expensive, but not ostentatious. The kind of outfit that said credible witness instead of vindictive wife. "You didn't sleep," Janet said, starting the coffee maker. "Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the courtroom. Saw Marcus sitting there. Saw the jury looking at me like I was the one on trial." "In some ways you are," Janet said honestly. "That's how these cases work. The victim becomes the defendant in everything but name. But Elle, you've been preparing for this. You know what to expect. You know how to handle Brennan's questions. Knowing and doing are different things. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug she handed me. What if I freeze up there? What if I start crying or get angry or say something stupid? Then you'll be human. The jury needs to see you as human, not perfect. Perfect victims don't exist, and trying to be one just makes you look fake. She sat across from me. Tell the truth. Stay calm when you can show emotion when it's real. Let them see that you're a real person who survived something terrible. David and Sophie arrived at 7 to drive with us to the courthouse. They both looked exhausted, scared, trying to be brave for my sake. My children, who should have been planning careers and relationships and futures, instead forced to watch their father stand trial for trying to murder their mother. Whatever happens today, I said as we got in the car, I want you both to know I'm proud of you. You've been so strong through all this. Don't talk like that, Sophie said, her voice breaking. Don't talk like you're saying goodbye. I'm not. I'm just saying what needs to be said just in case. The courthouse was surrounded by media trucks, reporters, with cameras, protesters with signs. Some of the signs supported me. Justice for Eleanor. Believe survivors. Others were hostile. Gold digger. Lying wife. Free Marcus Whitmore. Don't look at them, Janet ordered as we pushed through the crowd. Eyes forward. Don't give them anything they can use. But I saw them anyway. Saw the hatred on some faces, the sympathy on others. Saw Rebecca's parents holding signs proclaiming their daughter's innocence. Saw Marcus's mother stone-faced and furious, watching me with pure loathing. Inside the courtroom was already packed. Spectators filled every seat, more media in the designated press section. Patricia Reeves met us at the prosecutor's table, her face calm and professional. Ready, she asked, as I'll ever be. Remember everything we practiced. Answer the questions directly. Don't elaborate unless asked. If Brennan rattles you, take a breath before responding. You're in control here, not him. The bailiff called for everyone to rise. Judge Catherine Morrison, no relation to Detective Morrison, entered and took her seat. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every kind of human ugliness the justice system had to offer. Be seated, she said. We're here today for the trial of Marcus Whitmore and Rebecca Chen, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and fraud. Are both sides ready to proceed? The prosecution is ready, Your Honor, Reeves said. The defense is ready, Thomas Brennan replied. He was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-50s expensive suit, the kind of confident smile that came from winning more cases than he lost. Beside him, Marcus sat in a dark suit, his face carefully neutral. He looked thinner than I remembered older. Prison had aged him. Good. Rebecca sat at the defense table with her lawyer, a woman named Jennifer Cross. Rebecca wore a pale pink sweater and pearl earrings, her hair in a soft bun. She looked like she was going to church, not standing trial for attempted murder. Her eyes found mine across the courtroom, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Then she looked away, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Jury selection will begin now, Judge Morrison announced. We'll proceed until we have 12 jurors and 2 alternates. The process took all day. Potential jurors were questioned about their knowledge of the case, their ability to be impartial, their feelings about wealthy women and young mistresses, and attempted murder. Some were dismissed for admitting they'd already formed opinions, others for having personal experiences that might bias them. By 5 o'clock, we had our jury. 7 women, 5 men, ranging from mid-20s to late 60s. A teacher, 2 retirees, a nurse, an accountant, a construction worker, and 6 others whose professions I'd already forgotten in my exhaustion. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Judge Morrison said, at which time we'll hear opening statements. I made it out of the courthouse through the media gauntlet into Janet's car before I started shaking. Full body tremors I couldn't control. Sophie held me in the back seat while David drove, taking random turns to lose any reporters following us. You did great, Janet kept saying. Just being there, staying calm, you did great. But I hadn't done anything yet. The real trial started tomorrow. The real battle began when I had to sit 3 feet from Marcus and tell a room full of strangers how my husband had tried to kill me. That night I took a sleeping pill doctor prescribed and slept hard and dreamless for 10 hours. When I woke it was 6 a.m. and Janet was already up making breakfast neither of us would eat. "Big day," she said unnecessarily. "The biggest." We went through the same routine as yesterday. Coffee, careful dressing David and Sophie arriving to drive us. But today felt different. Today the real work began. Opening statements started at 9 sharp. Patricia Reeves walked to the jury box and began to speak. "Eleanor Whitmore trusted her husband," she said simply. "For 28 years she trusted him with her life, her home, her future. And for 8 months, Marcus Whitmore repaid that trust by poisoning her. Slowly, methodically, deliberately. Every morning he prepared her vitamins and watched her swallow arsenic. Every evening he kissed her goodnight, knowing she was dying by his hand. And when she was finally in the hospital, organs failing doctors giving her days to live, he stood outside her room with his mistress and planned her funeral. Planned how they'd spend her life insurance money. Planned their future together built on her grave." The jury was riveted. Reeves had their complete attention. "The defense is going to tell you this was a love affair gone wrong, that Rebecca Chen was an innocent young woman seduced by an older man, that Eleanor Whitmore is a vindictive wife who fabricated evidence. But the evidence doesn't lie. The arsenic in Eleanor's bloodstream doesn't lie. The recordings of Marcus and Rebecca celebrating her impending death don't lie. And by the end of this trial, you'll know beyond any reasonable doubt that these 2 people conspired to murder Eleanor Whitmore for money." She returned to her seat. Thomas Brennan stood buttoning his suit jacket and approached the jury with a sad smile. "My client made mistakes," he said. "Marcus Whitmore had an affair. He fell in love with someone who wasn't his wife. He lied, he snuck around, he betrayed his marriage vows. Those are all true and he takes full responsibility for them. But there's a vast difference between being a bad husband and being a murderer." He paused, letting that sink in. "The prosecution wants you to believe that Marcus Whitmore carefully plotted to kill his wife over 8 months. But ask yourself this. If he wanted her dead, why use a slow poison? Why not something quick, something that would look like a heart attack or an accident? Why draw out her suffering for months if the goal was just to get her money?" The answer is simple. Because he wasn't trying to kill her. He was giving her supplements he genuinely believed were healthy. Supplements that, unbeknownst to him, had been contaminated with arsenic. I felt ice shoot through my veins. That was their defense. Contaminated supplements. "As for Rebecca Chen," Brennan continued, "she's a 28-year-old woman who made the mistake of falling in love with a married man. She believed his marriage was over. She believed his wife knew about their relationship and had accepted it. When Marcus discussed insurance and funerals, Rebecca thought they were planning for a future his dying wife had approved. She had no knowledge of any poisoning, any murder plot. She's as much a victim of Marcus's deception as Eleanor Whitmore is." He turned, looked directly at me. "Eleanor Whitmore is angry, and she has every right to be. Her husband betrayed her. But anger doesn't make someone guilty of attempted murder. And the prosecution's entire case rests on Eleanor's word, on recordings she admits to making secretly on a narrative she constructed, while sick and suspicious, and yes, vengeful. We ask that you listen to all the evidence, consider all possibilities, and remember that in America, we don't convict people because we feel sorry for the alleged victim. We convict them because the evidence proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And in this case, it doesn't." He sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison called for the first witness. The prosecution calls Dr. Elizabeth Chen to the stand. Dr. Chen walked to the witness box, was sworn in, and sat down. Reeves approached with a folder. "Dr. Chen, you're a physician specializing in toxicology, is that correct?" "Yes." "And you treated Eleanor Whitmore when she was admitted to St. Catherine's Hospital?" "I did. Mrs. Whitmore presented with symptoms that initially appeared to be organ failure. Liver and kidney dysfunction, fatigue, confusion, nausea. Standard testing showed elevated liver enzymes, but the pattern was unusual." "Unusual how?" "The progression didn't match typical disease patterns. When I reviewed her medical history and ran additional tests, I discovered elevated arsenic levels in her blood. How elevated? Dangerously so, consistent with chronic exposure over an extended period. Based on the levels and the rate of decline once exposure stopped, I estimated she'd been ingesting arsenic for approximately 6 to 8 months. Reeves showed her a document. Are these the test results? Yes. And in your medical opinion, was this arsenic exposure accidental? Brennan stood. Objection. Calls for speculation. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Rephrase, Ms. Reeves. Dr. Chen, in your experience, how does someone typically get exposed to arsenic? Industrial accidents, contaminated water supplies, or deliberate poisoning. Given Mrs. Whitmore's lifestyle and occupation, the first two were unlikely. That left deliberate exposure. And where did you determine the arsenic was coming from? Mrs. Whitmore's daily vitamin supplements. When we tested the remaining pills from her bottle, we found they'd been laced with arsenic, carefully, systematically in doses small enough to avoid immediate detection but large enough to cause cumulative damage. Who prepared these vitamins for Mrs. Whitmore? According to her statement, her husband Marcus prepared them for her every morning. He'd been doing so for years. Brennan stood for cross-examination, still wearing that sad, sympathetic smile. Dr. Chen, you testified that the supplements were contaminated with arsenic. Is it possible they were contaminated at the manufacturing facility before Mr. Whitmore ever touched them? It's possible, but unlikely. The contamination was too consistent, too precisely dosed. But possible. Technically, yes. And you never actually witnessed Mr. Whitmore preparing these vitamins, did you? No. So you can't say with certainty that he was the one who added the arsenic. No, but... Thank you, doctor. No further questions. Dr. Chen stepped down. The prosecution called Detective Morrison next. She testified about the investigation, the recordings, the evidence collected from Marcus's computer, showing searches for arsenic poisoning symptoms, life insurance policies, and how long it takes for death certificates to be processed. We found these searches on Mr. Whitmore's personal laptop, Morrison said, showing the jury printouts. Conducted over a period of 6 months, things like how much arsenic is lethal, arsenic poisoning symptoms, life insurance, payout timeline after death. Did you find similar searches on Mrs. Whitmore's devices? Reeves asked. No, only on Mr. Whitmore's. Brennan's cross-examination focused on the recordings. Detective Morrison, Mrs. Whitmore recorded her husband without his knowledge or consent, correct? Correct, but it's legal in this state to record conversations you're party to without informing the other person. Legal, perhaps, but ethical. She was lying to him, pretending to be dying, manipulating him into making statements that sound incriminating out of context. The context was that he'd been poisoning her for 8 months. I'd say that justifies some deception. That's your opinion. Let the jury form their own. Brennan smiled at Morrison like they were old friends. You liked Mrs. Whitmore, didn't you? Felt sorry for her? I believed her story, if that's what you're asking. So much so that you actively helped her entrap her husband. You provided recording equipment, coached her on what to say, even disguised yourself as a nurse to gather evidence. I helped build a case against someone we suspected of attempted murder. That's my job. Or you helped a vindictive wife destroy her husband because you believed her version of events without considering alternatives. The evidence supports her version. That's for the jury to decide. Brennan sat down, looking satisfied. The prosecution rested for the day. Judge Morrison adjourned court until tomorrow. I walked out of there feeling like I'd been in a fight, and I hadn't even testified yet. He's good, I said in the car. Brennan is really good. He is, Janet agreed. But so is Reeves, and we have the evidence. Don't lose faith now. But faith was hard when Brennan had just spent 2 hours making the jury question everything, making them wonder if maybe I was lying, maybe I was vindictive, maybe this was all an elaborate revenge scheme. That night, Sophie found me staring at my phone, reading the trial coverage. Mom, don't, she said, taking it from me. You know it's just going to upset you. They're saying Brennan destroyed the prosecution's case today, that he poked holes in every argument. They're saying that because controversy gets clicks. The evidence is solid, Mom. The jury will see that. I wanted to believe her, but I'd seen the jurors' faces during Brennan's cross-examination, seen the doubt creeping in. Reasonable doubt was all Marcus needed, just enough uncertainty to avoid conviction. The next day, it was Rebecca's lawyer's turn. Jennifer Cross was smoother than Brennan, more sympathetic. She called character witnesses for Rebecca, her parents who testified about what a good daughter she was, friends who said she was kind and trusting and naive, a former professor who described her as idealistic and easily influenced. Rebecca Chen is not a criminal mastermind, Cross said in her opening. She's a young woman who made bad choices because she trusted the wrong person. Marcus Whitmore lied to her just as he lied to his wife. She's a victim too. Then Cross called Rebecca to the stand. This was the moment I'd been dreading, watching her testify, spin her story, play the innocent victim. Rebecca was sworn in and sat down looking small and scared in the witness box. Cross approached gently like Rebecca might shatter. Rebecca, can you tell the jury how you met Marcus Whitmore? At work. I was his assistant. He was kind to me, mentored me. I admired him. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. Over time, it became more. He told me his marriage was unhappy, that his wife was cold and distant, that they were staying together out of obligation, not love. Did he tell you he planned to leave his wife? Yes. He said they were going to divorce quietly after the holidays. He said Eleanor knew it was over, that she'd agreed it was best for everyone. Did you know Eleanor Whitmore was sick? Not at first. Marcus told me she had health problems, some kind of organ condition. He said it was serious, but that the doctors were managing it. He seemed genuinely worried about her. When did you learn the severity of her condition? About 2 months before her hospitalization. Marcus told me she was deteriorating faster than expected, that she might not have much time left. Rebecca's voice broke. He was devastated. I tried to support him through it. Did he ever tell you he was poisoning her? No, never. I would never have been okay with that. I'm not a murderer. Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. When I found out what he'd done, what he'd been doing all that time we were together, I felt sick. Used. I thought I was in love with a good man going through a difficult time. Instead, I was sleeping with someone who was actively killing his wife. What about the text messages? The ones where you discuss the life insurance? Marcus told me Eleanor wanted him taken care of after she died, that she'd made him the beneficiary on everything because she loved him and wanted him to be okay. When we talked about the money, I thought we were honoring her wishes, planning for a future she'd approved. Did you celebrate her impending death? No, God, no. We had champagne one night, yes, but we were toasting to surviving a difficult time, to getting through the grief together, not to her dying. I liked Eleanor the few times I met her. I never wanted her dead. Cross finished. Reeves stood for cross-examination, and I could see the prosecutor's predatory smile. Ms. Chen, you claim Mr. Whitmore told you his marriage was over, but you attended the company Christmas party 2 years ago, didn't you? The one where Eleanor Whitmore was present? Yes. And at that party, you saw Marcus and Eleanor together. You saw them laughing, holding hands, dancing. They looked happy, didn't they? I guess. You guess or they did? They looked happy, Rebecca admitted quietly. So when did this supposedly unhappy marriage begin, before or after you started sleeping with Mr. Whitmore? Objection, Cross said. Argumentative. Sustained. Rephrase, Ms. Reeves. Ms. Chen, when exactly did Mr. Whitmore tell you his marriage was over? About 6 months after we started seeing each other. 6 months after the affair began. Interesting timing. Reeves walked closer. You testified that you had champagne with Mr. Whitmore, that you were toasting to getting through a difficult time. But we have a recording of that conversation. Would you like to hear what you actually said? Rebecca went pale. I don't remember exactly. Let me refresh your memory. Reeves played the audio, Rebecca's voice clear and eager. Just a few more days, baby. Then we're free. Then we're rich. The courtroom went silent. Rebecca's face crumbled. Does that sound like someone grieving a difficult time, Ms. Chen, or someone excited about a payout? I was just trying to be supportive of murder, "Objection!" Cross jumped up. "Your Honor, Ms. Reeves is badgering the witness." Sustained. Ms. Reeves, tone it down. But the damage was done. The jury had heard Rebecca's own words, and they didn't match her innocent victim story. Reeves continued methodically destroying every claim Rebecca made, showing texts that proved she knew Eleanor didn't approve of the relationship, bank statements showing Rebecca spending money. Marcus gave her money that came from Eleanor's accounts, browser history from Rebecca's laptop showing searches for splitting life insurance with boyfriend, and arsenic poisoning symptoms. "You knew," Reeves said finally. "You knew he was poisoning her, you knew she was dying, and you counted the money before she was even dead. You're not a victim, Ms. Chen. You're an accomplice." Rebecca was sobbing by the time she left the stand. Her lawyer tried to repair the damage with redirect, but it was too late. The jury had seen the real Rebecca. Calculating, greedy, guilty. Court adjourned for the day. I felt a spark of hope for the first time since the trial began. "Reeves destroyed her," David said in the car. "Did you see the jury's faces? They didn't believe a word she said." "One down," Janet said. "Tomorrow Marcus testifies. That's when this really gets interesting." I barely slept that night, anticipation and dread warring in my gut. Tomorrow, I'd watch my husband take the stand, lie under oath, try to convince 12 strangers he hadn't tried to murder me. Marcus was sworn in at 10 a.m. He wore the same dark suit from yesterday, but he looked more haggard. Prison was taking its toll. "Good." Brennan approached with that same sad smile. "Marcus, tell the jury about your marriage to Eleanor." "We were happy," Marcus said, his voice steady. "For a long time we were really happy. But over the years, things changed. Eleanor became focused on her career, on accumulating wealth. I felt like an accessory to her life, not a partner." I dug my nails into my palms to keep from reacting. "When did you meet Rebecca Chen?" "About 2 years ago. She started as my assistant. She was young, enthusiastic, made me feel valued in a way I hadn't felt in years. I know it's cliché, the older man falling for the younger woman. I'm not proud of it, but it happened." "Did you tell Rebecca your marriage was over?" "I did, because emotionally it was. Eleanor and I were roommates more than spouses. When I fell in love with Rebecca, I knew I needed to leave. I just didn't know how." "Did you poison your wife?" "No, absolutely not. I gave Eleanor vitamins every morning like I had for years. If those vitamins were contaminated, I had no knowledge of it." "Where did you get the vitamins?" "From a supplement store downtown. Same place I'd been buying them for 5 years. I never suspected they could be dangerous." Brennan showed him the computer searches. "The prosecution claims these searches show premeditation. What do you say?" "I was researching Eleanor's symptoms because I was worried about her. She was getting sick and the doctors couldn't figure out why. I searched for everything, grasping at straws. The arsenic searches were because I read an article about environmental contamination and wondered if that could be affecting her. And the life insurance searches. I was trying to understand our financial situation. If Eleanor died, I needed to know what I'd be facing. That's not sinister, that's practical." Brennan finished. Reeves stood, and I could see the fury barely contained in her professional demeanor. "Mr. Whitmore, you testified that your marriage was emotionally over. But you never filed for divorce, did you?" "No. The timing never seemed right." "The timing never seemed right, or the money never seemed worth losing?" Reeves pulled out documents. "Your prenuptial agreement states that in the event of divorce, you'd receive a modest settlement, maybe $200,000. But if Eleanor died while you were married, you'd inherit everything, millions of dollars. That's quite an incentive to stay married, isn't it? I didn't marry Eleanor for money. But you stayed married for it, and when she got sick, you saw an opportunity." Reeves played the recording of Marcus outside my hospital room, his voice cold and calculating. "The life insurance will clear by Wednesday, so we can have the funeral on Friday. Make it cheap. She's not worth much anyway." Marcus's face went white. The jury leaned forward, horrified. "That doesn't sound like a worried husband, Mr. Whitmore. That sounds like a man planning to profit from his wife's death." "I was stressed, not thinking clearly. You were counting my client's life insurance money while she was dying 10 feet away. You called her worthless. You planned a cheap funeral to save money. Does that sound like love to you?" I loved Eleanor. I still love her. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I didn't try to kill her. Then explain the arsenic in her vitamins, the vitamins you prepared, the vitamins only you touched. I don't know how it got there. Maybe someone tampered with them. Maybe the manufacturer made a mistake. Or maybe you put it there, every morning for 8 months, watching her swallow poison, watching her die slowly, and then celebrating with your mistress. Objection, Brennan shouted. Your Honor, Ms. Reeves is making speeches, not asking questions. Sustained. Ms. Reeves questions only. Mr. Whitmore, did you put arsenic in your wife's vitamins? No. Did you try to kill her for her money? No. Then you won't mind if we call your next witness, someone who might shed light on your character. Brennan looked confused. This wasn't on the witness list. But Reeves had filed an emergency motion that morning to add a surprise witness. The prosecution calls Amanda Whitmore. Marcus's face went gray. I had no idea who Amanda Whitmore was, but Marcus clearly did. A woman in her early 40s walked into the courtroom. She was pretty professional nervous. She was sworn in and sat down. Ms. Whitmore, what is your relationship to the defendant? I was married to him for 6 years, 20 years ago. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel for order. I stared at this woman, my mind reeling. Marcus had been married before he'd never told me, never mentioned an ex-wife. Tell the jury about your marriage to Marcus Whitmore. It started well. Marcus was charming, attentive, ambitious, but after we got married, things changed. He became controlling about money. My money specifically. I'd inherited from my grandfather and Marcus wanted access to it. Did you give him access? Not full access. I kept separate accounts. That's when things got bad. He started making me sick. Little things at first. Upset stomach, headaches, fatigue. My doctor couldn't figure it out. What happened? My sister got suspicious. She had my hair tested. Traces of rat poison. Not enough to kill me, but enough to make me weak compliant. Marcus was putting it in my food. The jury was riveted. So was I. Marcus had done this before. He'd tried to poison his first wife, too. What did you do? I divorced him immediately, took my money and ran. He tried to fight it, but the evidence was clear. The judge granted the divorce and barred him from contesting. Why didn't you press charges? I was young, scared, embarrassed. I just wanted it over. I made him sign a non-disclosure agreement as part of the settlement. He wasn't allowed to discuss the marriage or the reasons for the divorce. In exchange, I wouldn't press charges. Yet you're here now testifying against him. Because when I saw the news, saw what he'd done to Eleanor, I knew I had to speak up. I couldn't let him get away with it again. I couldn't let another woman suffer what I suffered. Reeves showed her documents. Are these your medical records from that time? Yes. And this is the lab report showing poison in your hair? Yes. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. No further questions. Brennan stood for cross-examination, but he looked shaken. This was bad for Marcus, and he knew it. Ms. Whitmore, you signed a non-disclosure agreement. By testifying here today, you're violating that agreement. I'm willing to face the consequences. Some things are more important than money. You claim Marcus poisoned you, but you never pressed charges. No criminal case, no conviction. Just your word against his. I have medical records, lab results, evidence. Evidence that proves you had poison in your system, not evidence that Marcus put it there. Who else would have? Who else had access to my food, my drinks every day? Maybe you poisoned yourself for attention. Maybe you made the whole thing up. Amanda looked at Brennan with pure contempt. I gained nothing from that divorce except my life. Marcus walked away with his reputation intact, his career unharmed, free to do this to someone else. And he did. He did it to Eleanor. How many more women before someone stops him? Brennan had no response. Amanda left the stand, and I caught her eye as she passed. She nodded at me. This woman who'd survived the same monster I had. This woman who'd carried the weight of her silence for 20 years. Court recessed for lunch. In the hallway, Amanda found me. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I should have spoken up years ago. If I had, maybe he never would have hurt you. Well, it's not your fault, I said, meaning it. You survived. That's what matters. So did you. That makes you stronger than he ever expected. We didn't exchange numbers or promise to stay in touch. We didn't need to. We were sisters in survival, bound by the man who'd tried to destroy us both. That was enough. The trial continued for 3 more days. Expert witnesses testified about arsenic poisoning. Financial analysts showed the jury exactly how much money Marcus stood to gain from my death. Digital forensics experts walked through every computer search, every deleted email, every piece of evidence that proved premeditation. And then it was my turn, the moment I'd been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. The prosecution calls Eleanor Whitmore. I walked to the witness stand on shaking legs, was sworn in, sat down, looked at the jury, and tried to remember everything Reeves had taught me. Tell the truth. Stay calm. Don't let Brennan rattle you. Reeves approached with a kind smile. Mrs. Whitmore, tell the jury about your marriage to Marcus. And I did. I told them about 28 years together, about the good times and the slow decline, about the vitamins Marcus prepared with such care, about getting sicker and sicker while doctors scratched their heads, about the moment I realized my husband was trying to kill me. How did you realize? Reeves asked. I overheard him, outside my hospital room, planning my funeral with Rebecca, talking about how cheap they'd make it, counting my insurance money while I lay dying. My voice broke. That's when I knew. That's when I understood that the man I'd loved for 3 decades wanted me dead. What did you do? I fought back. I built a case. I recorded conversations, changed my will, gathered evidence, because I knew if I just accused him, no one would believe me. I needed proof. Did you ever confront him directly? No. I was too weak, too scared. He'd been poisoning me for 8 months. My body was failing. I had to be smart, not brave. Reeves finished. Brennan stood, and his friendly demeanor was gone. Now he looked like what he was, a predator going for the kill. Mrs. Whitmore, you claim you were dying, but you're here today healthy enough to testify. Were you really dying, or were you exaggerating for effect? I was dying. The arsenic was destroying my organs. I got better because Marcus was arrested and couldn't poison me anymore. Or because you were never as sick as you claimed. You said yourself that you recorded conversations secretly, that you changed your will without telling your husband, that you built a case against him. That sounds very calculated for someone at death's door. I was sick, not stupid. Or you were vindictive, not sick. Vindictive enough to destroy your husband because he dared to love someone else. He didn't just love someone else. He poisoned me. So you claim. But convenient, isn't it, that you have such perfect evidence, recordings that make him sound guilty, computer searches that support your narrative, a first wife who suddenly appears after 20 years to corroborate your story. None of that is convenient. It's all true. Or it's all manufactured, a brilliant scheme by a brilliant woman to frame her cheating husband. Why would I do that? For revenge, for money, for attention. Take your pick. I felt my anger rising, but forced it down. I don't need his money. I have my own. I don't need attention. I had a quiet, happy life before all this. And revenge. Revenge would be making him suffer the way he made me suffer. This is justice. Brennan smiled like he'd scored a point. You say you don't need his money, but you changed your will to cut him out completely. You made sure your children inherited everything. That sounds like someone very concerned with money. That sounds like someone making sure her attempted murderer doesn't profit from his crimes. We went back and forth for another hour. Brennan attacked every aspect of my testimony, tried to poke holes in my timeline, suggested I'd fabricated evidence. But I held firm, told the truth, stayed calm, didn't let him break me. When I finally left the stand, I felt like I'd run a marathon. But I'd done it. I'd survived. Closing arguments happened the next day. Reeves was passionate, forceful, demanding justice. Brennan was smooth, reasonable, planting seeds of doubt. Then the jury got the case, and we waited. 3 days. 3 agonizing days of waiting for 12 strangers to decide if my husband had tried to kill me or if I was just a lying, vindictive woman. Jury's back, Janet said on the 3rd day, her phone pressed to her ear. Verdict in an hour. We raced to the courthouse, took our seats. watched Marcus and Rebecca let in, both looking terrified. The jury filed in, none of them looking at the defendants. That was a good sign, Janet whispered. Juries that convict don't look at the defendants. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find the defendant Marcus Whitmore? Guilty. On the charge of attempted murder, how do you find the defendant Marcus Whitmore? Guilty. On the charge of fraud, how do you find the defendant Marcus Whitmore? Guilty. My vision blurred with tears. Sophie grabbed my hand. David let out a choked sound. Marcus sat frozen, face blank with shock. The jury read Rebecca's verdicts next. Guilty on conspiracy. Guilty on fraud. Not guilty on attempted murder because the jury believed she hadn't known about the poisoning until too late. But 2 out of 3 was enough. She was going to prison. Judge Morrison set sentencing for 2 weeks. Marcus was remanded to custody immediately. As the officers led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time, and I looked back, dry-eyed and calm, and watched him disappear through the door. It was over.